Deep within the hollow dungeon, in its lowest and most dangerous layer, a shadowy figure makes landfall upon the jagged, rocky terrain. The arrival immediately draws the attention of the cavern's inhabitants, a pack of multi-headed, winged dragons, who shriek and roar with territorial fury. The figure, a young man with dark hair, observes the beasts with a calm, almost bored expression, muttering a soft, drawn-out sound of acknowledgement. He sizes up his opponents, noting their nature and number. 5 bodies, all bloody dragons. He finds the situation merely interesting. One of the dragons lunges forward, roaring directly in his face, but he remains perfectly still, utterly unfazed by the display of aggression. With a sudden burst of speed, he launches himself into the midst of the pack, a dark blur weaving between the colossal beasts. As the dragons continue their cacophonous roars, he walks away from a deflected blast, remarking on how annoying their careless shouting is. He raises a hand, complaining that his ears are starting to hurt because of them. Dark energy coalesces around his palm as he prepares his spell, Black Hole Zone. The spell manifests instantly, a complex array of dark magical circles spreading through the air to ensnare the dragons, halting their assault as they look on in shock. With a tremendous whoosh, the magical constructs collapse inward, creating a violent vortex of pure force that tears through the cavern and pulls the dragons into its inescapable center. He unleashed the spell, a shrieking sphere of absolute darkness that immediately began to consume one of the dragons. The vortex imploded, collapsing into a single point and dragging the massive beast into oblivion. Standing in the now silent cavern, he watched intently, sensing that the moment had finally arrived. In response, a translucent screen materialized, displaying his status. Name, Omomo Rin. Age, 17. Level, 9999. Every one of his attributes, from physical power to magical defense, had reached the absolute maximum value of 99,999. A triumphant, "all right," escaped his lips as he took in the results. With a wide, relieved grin, he celebrated the achievement he had sought for so long. He had finally reached the level cap. He recalled the immense effort it had taken, the years spent leveling up, often sacrificing sleep, the endless search for optimal locations to gain experience, and the constant grind of collecting materials to enhance his gear. He acknowledged to himself that this endeavor had been more arduous than any game he had ever dedicated himself to. His thoughts returned to the present as he walked through the cavern, now illuminated by numerous pillars of light, signifying the materials dropped by the vanquished dragons. As he reviewed the long list of acquired items, a particular drop caught his eye, a bloody dragon's magic eye. He considered it incredibly lucky to receive such a rare item, especially after reaching the level cap, and began to wonder about the reward he might receive from the Dungeon Management Ministry. He reflected on the state of the world. 50 years ago, dungeons had appeared across the globe, causing widespread panic. Now, humanity coexisted with them. Within these dangerous places, only magic and skills could be used, but they held valuable resources unavailable in the outside world, prompting nations to support explorers. While exploration was life-threatening, he found it incredibly interesting. He admitted to himself that as a former game addict, this reality was perfect for him. His thoughts turned to his recent accomplishment. No matter which social network or bulletin board he had checked, he had never heard of anything like a level cap. A determined grin spread across his face. He had reached the limit. Now he wondered what could possibly lie beyond it. In response to his thoughts, a notification materialized before him. Maximum reward. His eyes widened in surprise. A new message provided an explanation. He could now acquire extra skills. From this point on, his level would no longer increase, but accumulating a certain amount of experience would allow him to learn these new abilities. Immediately, another notification confirmed his first acquisition. The skill teleportation was now usable. He processed this new information, a thoughtful expression on his face. Standing amidst the desolate, icy landscape, he considered the new skill. Teleportation. Interesting. He felt the urge to try it out right away, but hesitated. A wave of exhaustion hit him. He checked the time, 22:08. Realizing he had been fighting continuously since 6 in the morning, he sighed. It was probably time to sleep. He stood amidst a desolate, conquered landscape, clad in his formidable explorer's gear, but his thoughts were far from the dungeons. A single, weary sentiment echoed in his mind. He did not want to go to school tomorrow. The next day, however, found him in a classroom, the mundane reality of school life replacing the thrill of exploration. As students milled about, a sharp voice cut through the noise, calling out to him. The voice belonged to a tall, blonde student named Onizuka, who cornered him with a sneer. "You damn Momo," he began, demanding 10,000 yen. Omomo Rin recognized the familiar pattern. He was being bullied at school. Onizuka's face contorted with rage as he leaned in close, shouting for him to hurry up and hand over the money, threatening to kill him if he kept being slow. Despite the threat, he remained calm. He considered that he should probably resist, but then reasoned that if the problem could be settled with money, it was no problem at all. With savings in the hundreds of millions or even billions, he saw no issue. He pulled a bill from his wallet and offered it to Onizuka. To him, expending effort on anything other than capturing dungeons was simply a bother. But the transaction was not enough for Onizuka. With a cruel laugh, he suddenly struck Omomo Rin across the face, sending him stumbling back. He gloated about how useful it was to have such excellent slaves. The assault continued as Onizuka kicked him while he was down, driving his foot into his side. Standing over the fallen Omamo Rin, Onizuka smirked, remarking that he was glad they weren't in a dungeon. If they were, he claimed, he would have put a hole straight through his stomach. Later, Omamo Rin sat alone at his desk, head bowed in humiliation. The whispers of his classmates surrounded him, calling him pathetic and lame, speculating on how much of his parents' money he'd handed over. He remained impassive as Onizuka and another student approached him. Onizuka mentioned that he had watched Omomo's dungeon livestream with Korya's the previous day. Internally, Omomo considered this confrontation far preferable to a monster's attack. The other student reacted with awe, calling Onizuka famous. With a smug grin, Onizuka confirmed that he had been discovered and had even received an offer to collaborate. Omomo recalled the name. Korya's was a well-known influencer, famous for his popular dungeon streams that attracted a large following. Onizuka continued to boast, flexing as he declared his skill was Fist King, a power that even famous explorers couldn't ignore. He proudly confirmed to his companion that he had reached level 30. He laughed, marveling at his own success. The stream from yesterday had already amassed 50,000 views, a number so high it was almost overwhelming, and he attributed it all to his own presence. As Onizuka boasted, Omomo sat at his desk, piecing things together. He understood now that income was generated based on the number of views a stream received. It seemed a more lucrative path than even hunting S-rank monsters. His thoughts shifted to his own tedious day, the drudgery of work, an upcoming math test, and his plan to test a new skill after school. The classroom buzzed with unrelated chatter, students excitedly discussing rumors of a famous influencer named Yuria being somewhere on campus. Later, clad in his dark, hooded explorer's gear, he stood at the precipice of the hollow dungeon's lowest floor. A system interface materialized before him, displaying his vast array of available skills, including mastery over all forms of elemental magic. The display then highlighted a separate category, available extra skills. A single entry appeared beneath it, teleportation. He contemplated the new skill. While the name itself was self-explanatory, he admitted to himself that he had no practical understanding of how to actually activate or control it. He decided this was a good place to confirm his abilities, but his thoughts were abruptly cut short by a piercing scream echoing from deep within the dungeon, putting him on high alert. Recognizing the sound, he wondered about its origin and immediately activated his perception skill to pinpoint the source. His senses expanded, revealing a distant scene. A single individual was nearby, but they were surrounded by three distinct, evil presences. He understood instantly that if the situation was left to unfold, the outcome would be disastrous. This dire circumstance, however, presented the perfect opportunity to test his new power. He activated the skill, teleportation. Meanwhile, the source of the scream, a young woman, was cornered by three hulking ogres. She lamented her misfortune. What was supposed to be a simple live stream against a single ogre had turned into a desperate fight for survival. As the monsters closed in, she despaired, believing it was all over. Her online viewers watched in horror. But just as she lost all hope, a figure cloaked in shadow materialized behind her. He appeared in a swirl of dark energy, planting himself firmly between the terrified woman and the advancing beast. She stared up in utter disbelief. He glanced at the scene, muttering that it couldn't be helped. The sudden arrival stunned the ogre, while the stream's viewers erupted in confusion, questioning how he had teleported there in an instant. Without hesitation, he lunged forward, a blur of motion as he unleashed a swift, powerful strike against the monster. He unleashed a devastating kick, connecting squarely with the ogre's head. The force of the blow sent a shockwave through the air. The creature's head erupted from the impact, its massive body sent hurtling backward. The streamer cried out in shock as her viewers flooded the chat with disbelief, unable to comprehend how a single kick could fell such a beast. With the immediate threat neutralized, he swept the stunned streamer into his arms, holding her securely. He looked down at her, asking if she was all right. Blushing, she managed a quiet yes. He simply told her to wait for a moment. Her eyes widened in terror as another ogre charged from behind, and she screamed for him to watch out. Unfazed, he activated a skill, teleportation, and they vanished in an instant, the ogre's club smashing into the empty ground. From a safe vantage point, he observed the remaining ogres, remarking to himself how useful the skill was. Her audience was in an uproar, questioning who he was and how he could disappear, with one viewer correctly guessing he was using teleportation. His observation complete, he launched himself back into the fray, descending upon the second ogre with blinding speed. He landed his attack, but realized with a slight miscalculation that it wasn't enough. He immediately adjusted his position for another strike. His follow-up kick struck the beast's face with explosive force. The streamer could only watch in stunned silence as the creature reeled from the devastating blow. The second ogre crashed to the ground, defeated. As he stood over its fallen body, the stream's chat exploded with praise and large monetary donations, with viewers expressing their amazement and gratitude to the mysterious rescuer. He reflects that, compared to the bloody dragon from the day before, the ogre was hardly a challenge. As he stands over the defeated monster, the live stream's chat feed erupts. Donations and messages of praise flood in, with viewers calling him a hero, a god, and questioning if he is even stronger than a rank S adventurer for having saved a streamer, my Yuria-tan. His gaze then settles on the girl he rescued. A thought strikes him as he looks closer. It's Yuria, a girl from his school. He recalls hearing rumors about her, but is stunned to find her inside a dungeon. An immediate sense of foreboding washes over him. He feels that getting involved with her will only lead to trouble and considers making a quick departure. Deciding it's for the best that the situation didn't become more serious, he begins to turn away, reasoning that a person with his capabilities should avoid such dangerous entanglements. But before he can leave, Yuria's voice calls out from behind him, pleading for him to wait. She stares at his back, her mind racing. She considers herself a high-level member of the elite 8G society, yet the enemy she couldn't defeat was handled so easily by him. She desperately wonders who this person could possibly be. As she watches him, her eyes catch a glimpse of his status information shimmering in the air. The number displayed is impossibly high, level 9999. The sight freezes her in place. Her eyes widen in utter shock and disbelief as the number registers in her mind. Her entire understanding of power is shattered. This person standing before her was on a completely different plane of existence. He slowly turns to face her, his expression unreadable, and poses a simple question. Who are you? An alarm clock rings, pulling Omomo Rin from his sleep. He groggily opens his eyes, acknowledging the arrival of morning. As he gets ready, he reflects on how exhausting the previous day had been, filled with unexpected events that tempt him to go back to sleep. His thoughts drift to a vivid memory of a girl with long, light hair calling out urgently for him to wait. In that memory, she pleaded with him, her voice filled with desperation. She begged him to at least tell her his name. His response had been a simple, blunt no. The girl, Yuria, stared in disbelief, questioning why he would refuse such a simple request. She then seemed to reason with herself, muttering that if a famous person like him were to know her name, it would surely cause trouble. Frustrated, she stomped her foot on the ground. Still, she wouldn't give up. She slid closer to him, her face flushed as she insisted that if not his name, he must at least tell her his initials. She even suggested AA. She scoffed, accusing him of making them up on the spot. From their perch on the rocky peaks, he swore that the initials were real. The memory fades as Omomo, now in his school uniform, walks down a quiet street. He felt a bit bad about the encounter, but reaffirmed his belief that careless introductions could be his downfall. Yuria's final plea for some material lingered in his mind as he continued on his way. His thoughts are shattered by a sudden, violent crash next to him. In the same instant, a hand grabs his shoulder, forcing him to a halt. He looks up to find himself surrounded by a group of other students. Their tall, imposing leader with spiky hair sneers down at him. Hey, Omomo, the bully calls out, still a creepy bastard as always. His thoughts raced as he recognized his aggressors. It was Onizuka again, but this time he had brought friends, led by the tall, spiky-haired student. Omomo braced himself, wondering what they could possibly be planning. The tall bully confronted him directly, stating that he'd heard the rumors about Omomo saving his Yuria-chan and that the story was spreading fast. Omomo flinched, startled by the accusation. He continued his tirade, holding up a phone and scoffing at the ridiculous fake news that Omomo had instantly defeated a Death Devil Ogre. A horrifying realization dawned on Omomo. Yuria must have been live-streaming the entire event. His jealousy boiling over, the bully slammed his fist into the nearby wall. He roared that now people knew it was Omomo, screaming that a loser like him had no right to stand out. The impact sent Omomo sprawling onto the pavement. He lay there, bruised, as the tall bully loomed over him with a cruel smirk, cracking his knuckles in satisfaction. On the ground, Omomo recognized the familiar sting of petty jealousy, realizing the bully hadn't changed at all. The aggressor sneered, mocking that a pathetic shut-in could never accomplish such a feat. He looked up and calmly agreed, stating that the bully was right and that it wasn't him. His opponent let out a triumphant laugh, exclaiming that he knew it. As another blow landed, Omomo accepted the beating. He reasoned that it was better this way. If the rumor spread that it wasn't him, he could avoid unwanted attention. A little pain was a small price to pay. The bully leaned in close, his face inches from Omomo's, demanding an answer. Just then, a clear female voice cut through the tension, asking what they were doing. At the alley's entrance stood Yuria, disguised in a baseball cap and face mask. Flanked by two imposing men in suits, she stared at the scene, repeating her question, what on earth was going on here? Her sudden appearance left everyone stunned. The blonde bully, Onizuka, could only stammer her name in disbelief as he stared. Omomo, bruised and caught off guard, looked up at the unexpected arrival. He couldn't comprehend the situation, his mind racing as a blush crept across his face. He wondered what on earth she was doing in a place like this. Ignoring his confusion, she fixed her gaze on the tall bully, her voice sharp and demanding. She asked him exactly what he thought he was doing to her precious Reikoen. The aggressor recoiled, taken aback by her directness. He recovered with a sneer, questioning her choice of words. But she gave him no ground, her eyes narrowing as she reminded him that she was the one in control of this interrogation. Even his companion seemed to waver under her intense scrutiny. Onizuka nervously agreed with her assessment, admitting that their actions were, in fact, bullying. The atmosphere grew tense. Omomo watched her, realizing with a jolt that this cold, intimidating person was nothing like the cheerful streamer he knew. The tall bully, too, seemed to understand that the situation had turned against him. Despite the gravity of the moment, Omomo called out to her, insisting that he was fine and that she didn't need to worry about it. His selflessness in the face of his own pain seemed to break through her stern facade. A deep blush spread across her cheeks as she looked at him, her heart fluttering as she wondered just what kind of person Reikun truly was. He, however, grew frantic internally. This wasn't about kindness, he thought with rising panic. It was a calculated move. If she kept interfering, his entire strategy of getting beaten up to divert suspicion would fall apart. As Yuria let out a quiet sigh, the tall bully's patience finally snapped. He erupted in anger, refusing to believe the rumors. He shouted that there was no way a shut-in freak like Omomo could possibly be the one who saved the famous Yuria-chan. His tirade is met with a look of pure revulsion from Yuria. Her face contorts in anger as she declares his actions disgusting. She continues, her voice sharp, telling the bully he doesn't have the right to call her with a familiar chan suffix. She adds that it's insulting to even compare him to Reikun and calls them cowards for ganging up on someone. The bully and his friends are left speechless by her outburst. Her mind then drifts away, recalling Reikun with a flushed expression. She swoons, thinking about how his seemingly indifferent, aloof attitude only made him more sexy and cool, and how he could effortlessly crush enemies with a calm expression. Nearby, Omomo watches her, his own expression a mixture of exhaustion and annoyance. Returning to the confrontation, Yuria dismisses the bully with a final, cutting remark. She tells him he's nothing like Reikun, he's just the worst. The bully can only grit his teeth in silent fury as she turns away. Elsewhere, Onizuka fumes, questioning why the gloomy-looking mage is getting all the attention. He insists that he is far more charming, and that the other's victory against the monster was nothing more than a fluke. At the same time, Yuria makes her own appeal, reminding someone that her level is quite high and she is reasonably famous. She suggests they collaborate on the next venture. Watching her, the dark-haired mage, Momo, senses something is amiss. He notes that while Onizuka is certainly out of the question, Yuria seems troubled, and he asks if she is all right. She dismisses the concern with a wave of her hand, rejecting the proposition entirely. She states that dungeon levels are irrelevant here and declares she has no interest in scumbags who are lower than trash. Her insult hits its intended target. Onizuka's eyes narrow with rage as he snarls a warning for the bastard to never appear in his sight again. As he lunges forward, Yuria quickly steps between him and Momo, clicking her tongue in annoyance and shouting that it's enough. Her intervention is a moment too late. Onizuka has already seized Momo by the collar of his uniform. He yells at Yuria to stay out of it, calling her scum. She retorts for him to shut up, while Momo quietly agrees that this has gone on long enough. The situation escalates as the tall bully steps in. Momo, now bearing fresh scratches on his cheek, looks up at his larger assailant and asks if that is all he has. With cold resolve, he apologizes, stating that he cannot go easy on it. He then unleashes a sudden, powerful strike, his fist connecting squarely with the tall bully's jaw. The force of the blow sends the bully crashing to the floor, unconscious. Momo stands over his defeated foe as Yuria and the two suited men watch from a nearby doorway, their expressions a mixture of shock and quiet observation. He calmly accepts the challenge from the next aggressor, who warns him not to get cocky just because he defeated Onizuka. Without hesitation, he strikes the new opponent squarely in the face, mocking him for being all talk. He asks how it feels to be beaten by the very gloomy guy he looked down on. The assault is relentless, a flurry of blows landing with brutal precision. His opponent collapses, still shouting in disbelief, only to be met with a swift kick that silences him. Standing over the now unconscious bodies of his attackers, he dusts himself off, casually remarking that the fight is over. From a distance, Yuria watches the scene unfold. Her worried cry of his name cuts through the air, but it's drowned out by a new threat. Onizuka, a malicious grin spreading across his face, reveals a knife. He brandishes the weapon, warning Momo that this isn't over. He tries to intimidate him with a threat, revealing his older brother's connection to the Yakuza. A tense silence hangs in the alleyway, the threat lingering in the air. His expression remains utterly unimpressed. He dismisses the threat with a simple "so," before questioning Onizuka's intelligence for resorting to a knife, suggesting such a childish move means he should repeat elementary school. The insult enrages his final opponent. With sudden, brutal efficiency, the dark-haired mage intercepts the tall bully's knife attack. He twists the aggressor's arm, sending the weapon flying, and follows through with a powerful kick that slams the bully onto the pavement. He presses his advantage, wrenching the downed bully's arm. The bully cries out in agony, begging him to stop, but the mage simply stares down with a cold, questioning gaze, as if confused by the plea for mercy. He speaks, his voice flat. He asks why the bully, who has inflicted so much pain on others, now begs for his life when the roles are reversed. He questions if the bully honestly expects him to stop just because he was asked to. Meanwhile, Yuria watches the entire scene unfold on her phone, her eyes wide with shock. She is live-streaming the confrontation, broadcasting his every move to the world. A thought crosses her mind. He is now in a situation where he can no longer ask for help. The stream's comments mock the bully's terror. Viewers ask how it feels to be beaten by his victim, declaring his life over now that so many people have seen this. They state that the price for laying a hand on their Yuria and Omomo is heavy. The bully's face is a mask of pure despair as tears stream down his face. The dark-haired mage leans closer, informing the bully that he was never considered a rival, merely an annoyance, and that this is all there is to it. The bully desperately tries to plead with him to wait. A sharp, brutal impact cuts off the plea. The result is devastating. The bully lies on the ground, foaming at the mouth and completely incapacitated. Yuria watches, her voice trembling as she whispers, "Reikun." Standing over his defeated opponent, he calmly states that if one is strong, they can retaliate for past wrongs. But for him, he clarifies, an ordinary, peaceful daily life is the most important thing of all. Later, in a quiet park, a hand gently applies a bandage to his bruised cheek. He accepts the gesture, murmuring that this should be enough. He remains still as Yuria leans in, her face inches from his. She asks with genuine concern if he's truly not in pain after being beaten so badly. He internally dismisses the thought. An amateur's punches wouldn't affect him. His mind instead focused on her startling proximity. He explains that his original plan was simply to go along with it to clear his name, but her sudden appearance caused everything to go haywire. He then questions how she even knew what was happening to him. In response, she gives him a cheerful wink and a thumbs up, confidently reassuring him that she has already perfectly identified him. Behind her, he lets out a weary sigh. Now sitting together on a park bench, she clarifies that she was already live streaming and had intended to meet him anyway. Seeing his predicament, she felt she had no choice but to protect him. He listens, pondering her logic. He thinks to himself that an S-rank adventurer is just an ordinary girl outside of a dungeon, questioning why she would so readily challenge for large men as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Sensing his thoughts, she retorts with a flustered expression that the person who could instantly slay a Deathville Orca is by no means an ordinary high school student. Leaning close once more, she explains that she came to repay her debt to him. He can only stare back, completely bewildered by her statement. She turns away with a pout, muttering that she never got a chance to thank him properly before, so he shouldn't worry about it. She then grumbles that he's a truly unsociable person. Changing the subject, she asks him to call her Karen from now on, revealing that her real name is Miyamoto Karen. He realizes that calling her by her streamer name, Yuria, in public would attract too much attention. He addresses her as Karen, and she immediately seizes the opportunity, declaring that she will call him Reikun in return. He protests that he never asked for any repayment, but she playfully ignores his complaint. He bluntly tells Karen to stop involving herself with him. Her face falls into shadow as he questions why she's even speaking to him. In response, she leans closer, a blush spreading across her face. She claims to have information that even her 1 million subscribers don't know, information more valuable than what he possesses. He remains unimpressed, dismissing the idea. Her next words, however, seize his complete attention, or a calcum slime. His eye widens in sudden, sharp interest. The name brings to mind a formidable monster, known for its overwhelming defensive power. While extremely difficult to defeat, it yields immense experience points and provides materials for crafting top-tier equipment. Resources he sorely lacks. He internally questions her motives. It's a monster so rare that even encountering one is a feat. Why would she share such valuable intelligence with someone else? As if reading his mind, she beams, explaining that she heard about a mass outbreak occurring in the West Sakura dungeon. She thought the information would be useful specifically for him, whom she now calls Reikun. She then invites him to go with her after school. He offers a simple, thanks for the useful info, but his tone suggests a rejection of her company. Annoyed by his nonchalance, she clenches her fists in frustration. Later, as night falls, the moon illuminates the grand facade of the West Sakura dungeon. Inside, A contemplates his situation. His level is already maxed out, but if he could just obtain the strongest equipment. An image of a formidable blade appears in his thoughts. Having made his decision, he stands silhouetted at the dungeon's threshold, clad in his dark adventuring gear, ready to face the challenge alone. He stepped into the dungeon, immediately unleashing a torrent of power. A massive explosion of light and shadow tore through the monster horde, obliterating everything in its path. His expression remained impassive, his dark eyes surveying the devastation with cold, unwavering focus. The overwhelming display of force had been effortless. At the entrance to the West End dungeon, a large crowd of adventurers has gathered. Observing them from a distance, the young woman with light hair notes that quite a few people have come. The dark-haired mage beside her remarks that they ended up coming together after all. He suddenly grabs her hand, causing her to gasp in surprise. He explains that the lowest floor of this dungeon is the 50th, and it would take too long to get there normally, even with the orichalcum slimes present. He tells her hold on. When she points out that running would still take an hour or two, he simply states that it won't be necessary. With a command to go, he pulls her forward, activating a skill. A surge of dark energy and light envelopes them as they perform an instantaneous movement. They reappear in a vast, column hall. The young woman is bewildered, asking what just happened and confirming if this is truly the lowest floor. He calmly explains that he used a skill he recently acquired called instantaneous movement. His attention is fixed on the sight before them, a massive horde of dark, crystalline creatures. He identifies them as orichalcum slimes, their sheer numbers filling the chamber. She estimates there might be 10 of them, suggesting they could still escape. He corrects her grimly, his face shadowed. There are not 10, but 1,000. Without a moment's hesitation, he leaps into the swarm. Blades of dark energy extend from his arms as he carves through the slimes with blinding speed, shattering their crystalline bodies. Landing amidst the horde, he activates his fire attribute magic. Chanting for the creatures to be devoured, he unleashes a prominence zone, and intricate magical circles erupt, engulfing the area in a massive explosion. She watches the devastation, completely stunned by his power. She marvels at how incredible he is, thinking to herself that magic attacks aren't supposed to work on orichalcum slimes. He turns to her, asking why she isn't fighting. He explains that while their high defense normally negates damage, it's irrelevant to him because his stats are maxed out. Taking her hand once more, he tells her they are heading to the next location. She meekly agrees as they walk away. As she watched him, Streamer Girl's conviction solidified. He was, without a doubt, stronger and more impressive than anyone she had ever encountered. A new resolve formed within her. She too wanted to become stronger, to be a girl worthy of standing by his side. He was already moving, unleashing a torrent of dark, runic magic that tore through the remaining monsters in the chamber. Amidst the chaos, he yelled for her to run to the other side. With a confident smile, she agreed, preparing a crystalline spell of her own. She unleashed her water element magic, Absolute Zero, causing a colossal spike of ice to erupt from the ground. He watched, a smirk playing on his lips, impressed by her skill. She gave a confident wink, a performance worthy of her million subscribers. They fought in perfect sync, his dark power complementing her icy magic. A shared glance passed between them, a silent understanding in the heat of battle. When the dust settled, she surveyed the quiet chamber, noting a single, defeated creature. Wondering if that was the last of them, she admitted her exhaustion. A sudden realization struck her with shock. Her level had skyrocketed to 150. She turned to him, amazed, pointing out that even S-rank explorers were only around level 120. She insisted it was all thanks to him, but he deflected the praise, claiming her information about the orichalcum slimes was the key to his success. She refused to accept his modesty, passionately declaring that it was all his power and that she was truly glad to have met him. He looked away, a hint of unease on his face, and quietly remarked that she was being overly dramatic. His quiet moment was broken as his senses suddenly flared, his attention snapping towards an unseen stimulus. A notification registered in his mind. He had acquired a new extra skill, Magic Attack Reflection. He ponders the nature of his newly acquired skill, Magic Attack Reflection. Did it mean he could simply reflect an opponent's magic back at them? Or was there some other hidden meaning to it? He resolved to test its capabilities in the next battle. The realization struck him with a jolt of excitement. This was a new extra skill, earned after the arduous struggle of defeating hundreds of orichalcum slimes. It was already his second one. The dark-haired mage reviews his recent acquisitions with a smirk. The haul from the orichalcum slime was substantial. 2 cores, a shell, a mana pouch, and a jewel. He acknowledges that this is quite a respectable yield. He continues scrolling through his inventory, finding even rare materials. He possesses 999 units each of blood-dyed dragon's eyes, dead spirit parasite leaves, and divine dragon scales, along with 107 orichalcum slime ears. He muses that these ghost-type materials are particularly rare and should sell for a very high price. With his inventory confirmed, his expression hardens with resolve. A card-like item in his hand dissolves into particles of light as he vows that it makes no difference. He will see his objective through to the end. As he stands firm, Karen approaches him, asking what just happened. She points out that the dungeon boss was meant to be far more powerful. He simply reminds her that he said he would take care of it. Her cheeks flush as she stares at him, taken aback by his display of power. His declaration leaves the other adventurers in stunned silence. A blond man in a suit cries out that this is impossible and that they are all doomed. Beside him, an older, bearded man watches grimly. The mage turns to Karen, telling her it's time to go home. The bearded man stares into the empty dungeon corridor, muttering in disbelief. The scene shifts to the next morning, the sunlight streaming into a bedroom, as someone wonders what is happening. Lying in bed, the dark-haired mage scrolls through news on his phone. An article discusses how the supposedly strongest hunting party was unable to handle a recent threat, speculating on who could have caused such a disturbance and whether a legendary figure from the past has returned. He sighs, lamenting that his peaceful days are over. His thoughts are cut short by a notification at 6:12 a.m. It's a message from Onizuka, stating he knows about the mage's meeting with Omomo Rain tomorrow at 10 a.m. The message contains a direct threat. Onizuka will be going to the heavenly dungeon with Yuriatan to kill him. The mage's expression instantly darkens. He grits his teeth, the message bringing back memories of Onizuka's past taunts about him being a burden who was only tolerated due to his influence. He resolves that this time, he will demonstrate his true power. Wasting no time, he calls Karen. He asks if she's awake and has a moment to talk. On the other end of the line, she looks surprised, but listens intently as he begins to tell her the time and place. He makes the call to Karen, who immediately questions his decision to involve her. She points out that outside of dungeons, he's just a regular student, and she's just a normal girl, wondering why he would ask her for help after she's caused him trouble. He simply tells her it's fine. Her tone shifts to one of intense emotion as she confesses that she really likes him, declaring that if this is what it takes to be with him, then she will do it. Her declaration hangs in the air as she continues, insisting that she is already by his side. She admits that she might just be a substitute for someone else, but this time, she resolves to be the one to protect him, even if her usual self might not be up to the task. Omomo Rin agrees to the request over the phone. On the other end, Miyamoto Karen responds with a cheerful question. After the call ends, he sits alone in a hallway, his expression hardening with resolve. His resolve takes him to a new location, the Sky Dungeon. He stands as a lone figure in a vast, rocky canyon under a bright moon, his face set in grim determination. Suddenly, a much larger figure steps into his path, blocking the way forward. It is the tall bully, now clad in different attire, who confronts him with a confident smirk. The bully asks if Omomo Rin remembers him, boasting that he's no longer the weakling he once was. He adds that there's no point in running away. Omomo Rin simply acknowledges his statement. He continues, revealing that he has prepared a special item just for this occasion, certain it will be interesting. Omomo Rin looks on silently. Elsewhere, Miyamoto Karen appears to be watching the events unfold from a streaming setup. His confident demeanor twists into a furious shout. He declares that he has made meticulous preparations and that there is no way he will lose to someone so far beneath his own level. He produces a potion, explaining it's a special item that temporarily boosts his stats. He taunts Omomo Rin, asking if he understands the implications, and boasts about creating a skill killer for this fight before drinking the potion. The potion's effects take hold. He stomps his foot, cracking the ground beneath it, and roars a challenge for Omomo Rin to come and fight him. Omomo Rin watches, unfazed. He calmly responds, agreeing to fight according to the bully's rules for this one time. He then adds a condition. If those rules are broken, he will make it his victory. He makes the declaration with unwavering certainty. As he speaks, a feed shows an audience reacting to his words, confirming the confrontation is being broadcast. He stood his ground as rain fell within the vast cavern of the Sky Dungeon. Opposite him, the tall bully held his position. But their duel was overshadowed by a new arrival. A colossal, monstrous form descending from a massive rupture in the ceiling, its immense shadow blanketing the arena. In a dimly lit alley, the tall bully finds himself ambushed by a shadowy figure that lunges at him with sharp claws. Nearby, Omomo Rin stands with a focused expression, his finger pointed as if directing the assault. The shadowy form, revealed to be Omomo himself, slashes across the bully's torso with blinding speed, forcing a cry of shock from his target. He darts past his opponent in a blur of motion. The tall bully whirls around, enraged and confused, demanding to know where he's looking. Suddenly, an unseen force sends Omomo flying backward through the air, tumbling uncontrollably. He crashes to the ground, looking up with a mix of surprise and annoyance. He shouts at his opponent not to get carried away. Lying on the pavement amidst the shattered remains of a dark construct, he looks up to see the tall bully looming over him, who mockingly asks if that's all he's got. The bully brandishes a massive, spiked club, calling Omomo pathetic. He reveals he's been watching the live stream of the event, aware of the online audience's jeers and taunts directed at his opponent. With a furious expression, he swings the heavy club downward in a powerful arc, aiming to crush the down mage. The devastating blow is stopped completely as Omomo materializes a large, rectangular shield of dark energy. He calmly identifies the construct as a weapon of the ego, much to the bully's shock. His weapon shattered, the tall bully falls to his knees in defeat. Omomo stands over him, his own dark weapon still intact, and demands to know if this is all a lie. His gaze remains fixed and intense. Below, another figure emerges in the rain, a man in a dark, high-collared cloak. He is surrounded by a swarm of floating, glowing orbs, each marked with an intricate, circular sigil. The man speaks, his tone laced with condescension, noting that his opponent had let their guard down. The tall bully laughs with wild abandon, his face contorted in a gleeful grimace. Below him, a massive explosion erupts, sending debris and energy flying in all directions. He continues his triumphant laughter, declaring that his opponent's eyeballs must be popping out. In the midst of the blast, the dark-haired mage is engulfed, the force of the attack seemingly overwhelming him as the bully gloats that this is the power of his magic. But the attack suddenly dissipates. The dark-haired mage stands firm, his arm glowing with a new power. A spectacled, mustached man watches in disbelief, questioning what he's seeing. The mage has activated a new skill, Magic Attack Reflection. The reflected blast surges back towards its originator. The bully's triumphant expression twists into one of pure terror and agony as his own magic consumes him. He screams, his body racked with pain, while the dark-haired mage looks on, his objective complete. With the bully now lying defeated and unconscious on the ground, the mage turns his attention to the aftermath. Nearby, the streamer girl, Karen, calls out to him, asking if he's all right. She looks at him with concern, but he senses another danger. The mustache man looks on as the mage's expression hardens. He urgently shouts for Karen to get down. He acts instantly, throwing himself over her to shield her body with his own as a volley of dark, cylindrical projectiles rains down from above, impacting the ground around them. From the ground, the defeated bully begins to laugh maniacally once more. He gloats that this is the end, that they will both die here. As the dust settles, the mage pushes himself up slightly, still protectively covering Karen. He asks if she is unharmed, and she confirms she is okay. He looks up towards the source of the attack. A new group has arrived, led by a hooded figure with long, light-colored dreadlocks. The mage recognizes the gravity of the situation, realizing this is a boss battle. He finds himself confronted by yet another hostile group. The man at the forefront, wearing a baseball cap and bearing a scar on his cheek, smirks and announces that they've been waiting. He is flanked by several others. One with braided, light-colored hair, casually holding a knife to his lips, a stern-faced man with slick-back dark hair, and another with the top not standing in the background. As this first group makes their presence known, another emerges from the shadows. The hooded figure with dreadlocks steps forward, accompanied by a hulking, bald man with a scar bisecting his eye. The hooded figure addresses the dark-haired mage directly by his full name, Umamo Rin, their voice filled with menacing anticipation. In a ruined hall of stone pillars, a man with spiky, light-colored hair addresses his two companions, a dark-haired mage and a girl with animal-like ears. He declares that for their master's sake, this battle must be won, asking if they understand. Below them, a hostile force gathers, led by a bald, scarred man. One of the aggressors scoffs, confident they won't lose to a group of children. He turns away with a smirk, entrusting the situation to a man in a red hood, who confirms he understands his role. The two opposing factions stand poised for conflict across the vast, damaged chamber. The dark-haired mage's expression hardens as he questions why they are being attacked, pointing out that they were the ones summoned. The bald, scarred man looms over him, grinning cruelly as he retorts that being summoned is precisely the reason they must be eliminated. Without warning, the large man grabs the mage by the head and brutally slams his face into the stone floor. The impact is so forceful that it cracks the very ground beneath him. His face contorts in agony as his assailant grinds his head against the rough stone, forcing a pained scream from his lips. As the assault continues, a single thought races through the mage's mind. He wonders why this is happening again, questioning if he is fated to lose everything he holds dear. The pain triggers a memory, the sharp, visceral impact of a fist connecting with a face. The memory sharpens, revealing a younger version of himself on the ground, defeated. The slick-back leader stands over him, mocking his loss to an amateur. As the boy vows to become stronger, a large, bearded man watching from nearby advises him that to protect others, he must first learn to protect himself. In that past moment, the bearded mentor places a hand on his head, telling him the sea of trees has acknowledged him and that his desire for a peaceful life was a lie. The boy realizes he had been deceiving himself. Nearby, the animal-eared girl looks on, relieved. Returning to the present, still pinned to the floor, the dark-haired mage makes a solemn vow. He will protect his master, even if he must become a demon to do so. He declares that his enemies will not lay a single finger on her, his sudden resolve stunning the onlookers. He stared forward, his eyes wide with a chilling intensity. A shadow fell across his face as he continued his declaration, his voice low and menacing, promising that in the depths of hell, the dark-haired mage, Ray, stands protectively before the twin-tailed swordswoman, his expression cold with fury. He warns the surrounding thugs that they will regret angering him from the depths of hell. In response, the man in the red hood scoffs, telling the brat not to get cocky. The hooded man orders his men forward, dismissing Ray as just a kid and telling them not to flinch. As the thugs charge with a roar, a dark, claw-like aura of energy materializes around Ray's hand. In response, Ray leaps into their midst, a blur of dark energy. The thugs swing their makeshift weapons, but he moves with impossible speed, weaving through their clumsy attacks. He strikes with brutal efficiency. His shadowy hand seizes the red-hooded man by the face, the force of the impact sending shockwaves through the air as another thug is sent flying from a powerful kick. The assault is over in an instant. Bodies are strewn across the ground, either unconscious or writhing in pain. The large, bald man with the scar lies defeated amongst the fallen. The few remaining thugs stare in disbelief. One of them curses, wondering aloud how someone could be so powerful even outside of a dungeon. As he stands amidst the fallen, the swordswoman, Karen, approaches him from behind. She asks who he truly is, observing that his level of combat experience is unnatural. He turns his head slightly, his gaze still sharp, and questions if she thinks he can be looked down upon by other groups. His hand rests on the hilt of a dark, ornate dagger. His words provoke one of the remaining thugs, who shouts in outrage, questioning how a mere kid could have any real combat experience and dismissing him as just a pampered boy. Ray calmly faces the remaining aggressors. He states that compared to monsters, they are at the level of a baby chick. The thugs can only stare back, stunned into silence by his declaration. He calmly faced the enraged thug leader, who seethed, calling him a brat. Unfazed, Ray held his dark blade ready and asked if the man was truly losing to a mere baby. The taunt sent the leader into a rage. He roared an order to his men, telling them to attack and to make sure they got the woman as well. Before the thugs could react, Ray exploded into motion. He lunged forward, a blur of black energy and steel, cutting a path directly through his assailants. His assault was relentless. In a flurry of precise strikes, he carved through the remaining thugs, their bodies thrown aside by the force of his attacks. The hooded leader was caught in the onslaught, a spray of blood erupting from his chest as he was violently struck down. His remaining men watched in disbelief. One couldn't comprehend how their leader, their Aniki could be defeated by such a young opponent. Ray stood over the fallen man, who groaned in pain. He calmly questioned him, revealing that he had set up a decoy to lure them out. He demanded to know why they were making their move now and if they were being manipulated by a political family. The leader refused to give him any information. In response, Ray grabbed a handful of the man's hair, his expression hardening. With a brutal, swift motion, he slammed the man's head directly into the hard pavement, shattering the ground on impact. As the thug lay unconscious, Ray stood over him, his cold gaze unwavering. He spoke to the unmoving form, telling him to simply answer what he was asked and questioning if only his body was tough, but not his head. Lying defeated on the ground, the thug leader coughs up blood and issues a final, defiant warning. He tells Ray that his bravado is temporary, as Jinma's older brother will soon arrive. When that happens, he declares, Ray's life will be over. The name catches his attention. He quietly considers the word, his expression hardening. His contemplation is shattered by a sudden realization. Karen has appeared, confirming the thug's warning. Jinma's brother is formidable, and their fight is over. As she speaks, a massive blade cleaves the air toward them. With a shout, Ray shoves her aside just as the weapon crashes into the ground. A man with a scarred face and an eye patch descends upon the battlefield, commenting on his opponent's impressive movements as he prepares to strike near the fallen twin-tailed swordswoman. Below, the dark-haired mage intercepts another combatant, his shadowy cloak flaring as his blade shatters the ground upon impact. His massive blade clashes against the mage's sword with a sharp ring of steel. Looking down at his opponent under the moonlight, the eye-patch man observes that the young mage is more capable than he first appeared. As they stand locked in combat, the dark-haired mage's eyes fix on his adversary's face. He suddenly calls out, pointing attention to the man's scars. He questions how it's possible for the man to be so strong with such an injury. The eye-patch man seems baffled by the inquiry as he is forced to parry another blow from the mage's shadowy weapon. A memory from the past emerges. A younger version of the eye-patch man, his face unscarred, leads a small, dark-haired boy across the courtyard of a traditional estate. Inside, the young boy looks up earnestly, clutching the robes of the tall man who stands before him and two other attendants. Returning to the present conflict, the eye-patch man, identified as Jinma, remarks with surprise that the mage's determined expression remains unchanged. The twin-tailed swordswoman, sensing a connection, asks if they know one another. The dark-haired mage confirms it, stating plainly that Jinma is the man who raised him in his father's stead. Jinma's hardened demeanor instantly breaks. With wide, tearful eyes, he stammers in disbelief, questioning if it is truly Rei-sama and asking why he is there. The wider scene reveals another man lying defeated on the ground as the red-hooded figure looks on. Ray explains that the other group started the fight. As Jinma stares in shock, Ray asks if he should handle the troublemakers for him. Meanwhile, Jinma stands over the defeated thugs, his presence casting a long shadow. He demands to know if they understand who they have provoked. The men on the ground are terrified, one stammering in confusion. Jinma is identified not just as a combatant, but as Bakurono, the leader of the Kanda group. This confrontation brings to mind the fearsome reputation of Omamo Ray, known infamously as the blood-soaked silencer. His image is one of cold determination, backed by the shadows of a powerful and menacing organization. Back in the alley, the surviving thugs are stunned into silence as they recognize the young man standing amidst their fallen comrades. One of them, his face a mask of disbelief, stammers out the question that hangs in the air. He is the boss's son. He pays them no mind, instead turning to the twin-tailed swordswoman who trembles beside him. He gently reassures her, telling her that she is safe now. With her safety confirmed, he turns his cold gaze back to the defeated men. He demands to know what is going on, questioning why the Kanda group would be involved with the blood-soaked silencer. He thinks to himself that this situation is indeed strange. His interrogation continues as he asks why they are making political moves. He issues a stark warning. For their own sake, they should stay away from him, because he cannot predict what will happen next. He notes that their fear is understandable. From a distance, Jinma addresses the situation. He admits that he cannot speak freely, but a deeply unsettling atmosphere has taken hold of the entire organization. He confesses that even he does not know what the future holds. Ray processes this revelation, his mind racing. He finds it all very strange. The Kanda group is one of the most powerful forces in Japan. For such an organization to be in a state of disarray is almost unthinkable. His thoughts are interrupted by the twin-tailed swordswoman, who bows deeply. She apologizes profusely, claiming her own incompetence is to blame and begs for his forgiveness. Ray dismisses her apology, telling her to stop. His anger, he explains, is not for her. It boils up just from seeing the face of Onizuka, the one she was siding with. Jinma Bakurono addresses the young mage, Ray, stating that while he wasn't serious before, he is now. He asks about the back items that have come from the Dungeon Management Bureau, questioning if Ray's master is focusing her efforts on dungeon exploration. His eyes narrow slightly as he repeats the unfamiliar term, back items. Jinma elaborates that the country has been stockpiling them, noting that the EXP juice Onizuka used must have been one of those items obtained from the Bureau. A memory flashes of Onizuka being consumed by dark, shadowy tendrils a vial of this substance in his hand. He dismisses the topic, telling Rain not to worry about it, and assuring him that his master will surely like him. Ray, however, looks away, his expression suggesting that there is something more important on his mind. He changes the subject entirely, asking, "How is my father? Is he well?" Jinma's stern demeanor breaks into a wide grin as he enthusiastically confirms that he is. Elsewhere, the blonde-suited man reports to his superior. He explains that while reviewing a video of the incident, he heard Onizuka screaming about Ray's important person. His superior tells him to calm down. Ray closes his eyes with a soft sigh, remarking to himself that some things truly never change. His thoughts drift to a memory of his father, who appeared as a monstrous, shadowy figure. The creature apologized, explaining that he failed because he doted on Ray too much, which is why he made such a terrifying face in front of his subordinate. Yet another memory surfaces, this one of a gentle, human father ruffling his hair. This version of his father told him not to worry about his grades, and that he was doing a good job, admitting that he was only ever sweet to his son. Returning to the present, Ray touches his forehead, deep in thought. He finds it impossible to believe his father would order his death. Recalling Jinma's words about an unsettling atmosphere, he begins to suspect that some kind of trouble may be brewing within the organization. He listens as the blonde man confirms that his preferred back item will be delivered the following day. The man adds that he has been informed about the money from Onizuka and will resolve the issue with Ray's older brother. Before he can respond, Jinma Bakurono cuts in, telling Ray to dispense with the excessive concern. He then issues a direct order. Have a replacement for the broken tool delivered by the next day. Bakurono acknowledges the command with a simple understood. With the matter settled, the blonde man assures Bakurono that he will handle the aftermath. Bakurono agrees, and as they converse, Ray and the twin-tailed swordswoman turn to leave the scene, the defeated thugs still strewn across the pavement. They walk in silence through a dark forest. Ray breaks the quiet, noting how reserved she is. The swordswoman offers no reply, her gaze fixed ahead. He continues his thought aloud, concluding that her caution is understandable, considering his own involvement with a dangerous group. This reflection triggers a memory of a time when life was simpler. He recalls being with his friends when one apologizes, explaining that his mother warned him against playing with Ray too often. Despite another boy's protest that their game wasn't over, the first insisted on leaving. The memory sharpens. His friends, who had been so close just the day before, had suddenly changed. He sees them running away, and in his desperation to catch up, he stumbles and crashes to the ground. He remained on the ground, tears welling in his eyes as he wondered what he had done wrong. He couldn't understand why they had fled from him. The feeling of isolation was palpable. He remembers seeing other children and even adults keeping their distance, their whispers branding him as frightening and someone to be avoided. His painful past shaped his present resolve. He came to believe that an ordinary, peaceful life was the most precious thing of all. To achieve that, he resolved to become ordinary by avoiding human connection, losing himself in the world of games, and dedicating his time to exploring dungeons. His mind fractured, reflecting on a life spent cursing his own existence. It had been a hollow path, one defined by avoiding others. Pulled back to the present, he heard the twin-tailed swordswoman apologize. He turned to her, asking if she had been frightened, then stated that she must now understand he wasn't the respectable person she had imagined. She noted that they had managed to get through the ordeal safely this time, but his expression remained grim. He countered that there was no telling when they might be dragged into such danger again. Turning his back to her, he declared that for this very reason, their association had to end. He elaborated, insisting that being with someone like him was a bad idea, a fact she must surely realize by now. She stood silently behind him, his words about wanting an ordinary life echoing in her thoughts. As he began to walk away, he spoke a final, somber truth. It had been wrong of him to even hope for such a thing from the very beginning. In his room, the dark-haired mage stretches widely, a yawn escaping him as he acknowledges the lingering fatigue from the previous day. A sudden chime from his phone draws his attention, and he picks it up to see the notification. The phone displays a news article featuring a photo of a suspect with his face obscured. A message from someone named Jinma appears, stating that the matter concerning Onizuka has been completed and awaits his confirmation. The news image shows Onizuka in handcuffs, being escorted by 2 officers into a vehicle. Comments from online viewers flash across the screen, mocking him for his life being over and calling him a blatant criminal. He replies to Jinma, confirming he saw the news and thanking him for his efforts, musing that Jinma's people handled everything. Jinma responds with thanks and offers to also arrange for the retrieval of Yuria's streaming equipment. His thoughts drift to a conversation with the twin-tailed swordswoman. He recalls telling her that she should sever ties with him, insisting that being by his side has never brought her anything good. She looks down, silent for a moment, before quietly refuting his claim. He presses on, questioning her words and warning that if she stays with him, she might get dragged into his dangerous affairs. In response, she looks up at him, a faint blush on her cheeks. She asks if he has truly forgotten how much she likes him. She continues, explaining that she had a feeling from the very beginning. When the Onizuka gang's name was mentioned, he didn't flinch. Even when a knife was pointed at him, he remained completely calm. He looks away, a bead of sweat on his temple. He admits that, to be honest, he wasn't surprised at all. He just thought Ray was a cool guy. But then a realization dawns on him. You are. he begins to say. Before he can finish his thought, she closes the distance and wraps her arms around him in a tight embrace. That's why, she says softly. You shouldn't carry it all by yourself. He remains silent as the twin-tailed swordswoman embraces him, her voice soft but certain. She tells him that she understands he is, deep down, a truly kind person. She confesses that it is this kindness she has fallen in love with. Unconcerned with what others might think, she pleads with him to let her remain by his side from now on. He looks down at her, the thought crossing his mind that she is, indeed, a strange woman. Her expression shifts, filled with a fiery resolve. She declares that she will follow him even if he tries to flee, and that the gravity of their situation will not change her mind, punctuating her vow with a determined, if slightly flustered, thumbs up. As he looks at her, a profound realization strikes him. Perhaps she is offering him the very thing he has desperately wanted since he was a small, lonely child, a genuine connection he was always denied. Later, in the comfort of his room, a faint smile touches his lips as he reads a message on his phone confirming his request was fulfilled. His thoughts drift back to her, acknowledging once more what a peculiar woman she is. The following day, he arrives at school, walking with a morning crowd of students toward the main building. Inside the hallway, another student nearly bumps into him but quickly apologizes and scurries out of the way. He continues on, his expression unchanged. His presence commands immediate deference from others. Two more students spot him. One greets him with formal respect, Omomo-sama, while the other bows his head low as they clear a path for him. He walks on, a bead of sweat forming on his temple. It is painfully clear that everyone is afraid of him. He concludes they must have seen the broadcast. Just then, his thoughts are broken by a female classmate calling his name. She approaches eagerly, explaining that she wanted to thank him. Because of his actions, she reveals she has finally been freed from her bullies. He listens to the girl's hesitation before asking if she was being bullied. He reassures her, explaining that with Onizuka's recent violent behavior becoming widely known, the other bullies are likely keeping a low profile, so she shouldn't worry about it. He continues, telling her that since she has been freed from her tormentors, she should now live her life however she pleases. Visibly moved and blushing, the girl thanks him profusely. Rei offers a simple farewell and turns to leave, as she watches him go with a bright, joyful expression. Walking away from the school, he sighs, lamenting the loss of his peaceful days now that he has been the center of attention. His thoughts are interrupted as a sleek, black luxury car pulls up beside him. The car door opens, and an elegantly dressed woman steps out. She addresses him with the formal title Omomo-sama, stating that she has been waiting. Rei is visibly startled by her sudden appearance. A hand holds the car door open as a woman's voice calls out. Nearby, the dark-haired student, Rei, stares in disbelief, demanding to know what she's waiting for. The woman who opened the door, his chauffeur, leans in close to his ear. She whispers that the group leader sent her with instructions to make a scene, to deliberately show off in order to intimidate the unruly students. He can hardly believe his ears, sputtering in protest at the absurdity of her actions. As he is led away towards the luxury car, Onizuka and another classmate watch in utter shock. They speculate that the beautiful woman must be Omomo's lover and are stunned by the expensive vehicle, concluding that he truly lives in a different world than they do. The disruption weighs heavily on his mind. His peaceful days are ruined. The chauffeur asks if his business concerns the underground item he mentioned. When he confirms, she simply tells him to get in. Seated inside, he fumes silently, muttering a curse against the old man responsible. The chauffeur gives the order to depart, and the car speeds away. Later, in a basement room, Rei confronts the eye-patch-wearing man, Bakurono, grabbing him by the tie. He asks if Bakurono is angry, warning that he should be prepared for what's to come. The older man calmly replies that of course he is. He tightens his grip, shouting that Bakurono has destroyed the peaceful life he was trying to build. Despite his rage, he forces out an apology for the great trouble he has caused. Releasing his grip, Rei stands back, his anger still palpable. He demands that Bakurono stop stalling and tell him everything about the matter of the underground item. The man with the eye patch calmly faces him and reveals the truth. The deputy director of the Dungeon Management Bureau wants to meet with the young master. Rei is stunned into silence by the news. He explained that this wasn't about levels or being a nuisance. The official specifically requested a meeting after seeing the video of Rei's battle with the Devil Ogre. Rei, however, remained unconvinced, insisting he had no desire to meet them. Sighing in exasperation, Bakurono insisted that the meeting would be beneficial for Rei. He stressed that his personal involvement should indicate the gravity of the situation, prompting Rei to cover his face in frustration. Realizing this was a meeting he couldn't avoid, he reluctantly conceded, asking if Bakurono truly understood the implications. With a confident grin, Bakurono affirmed that he did, rhetorically asking if Rei thought the deputy director would offer him a reward for his troubles. With the matter settled, they proceeded down a long, sterile hallway, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Reaching a heavy wooden door, they paused as it was opened from within by an older man in a suit. The man looked directly at Rei, acknowledging him by name, Omomo-kun. The man, Ijima Shinji, deputy director of the Dungeon Management Bureau, stepped into the doorway, flanked by two bodyguards. He scrutinized Rei, remarking that he possessed a presence far beyond that of a typical high school student. Inside the office, Ijima formally introduced himself. Rei internally noted his high rank As the top of the Dungeon Management Bureau, Iijima extended a hand, assuring Rei it was an honor to meet and that this was no mere formality. He had specifically requested this audience. He then presented a business card, holding it out for Rei to take. Rei accepted the card, awkwardly apologizing for not having one to offer in return. Iijima chuckled, dismissing the notion and explaining its true purpose. It contained a phone number to be used to evade police inquiries. The deputy director then revealed the depth of his knowledge, stating that while Rei was an influencer on the surface, he was secretly the young head of the Kanda Group. Iijima warned that this double life made him susceptible to trouble, a revelation that left Rei utterly stunned. He remained silent, processing the revelation, as Deputy Director Iijima continued to speak. The official explained that while Japan is typically sensitive to such matters, he would make arrangements to prevent any unnecessary investigations. If the police were to arrive, Iijima instructed Rei was to call the number on the card he had provided. His suspicion grew. To be offered such a significant favor from a high-ranking official suggested a hidden agenda. He questioned the deputy director directly, asking if this was about a matter of great importance. The official let out a soft, intrigued sound. Rei, in turn, recognized the man's considerable insight. He realized that perhaps he should be the one to tighten his guard, not the other way around. The man with the eye patch, Jima Bakurono, presents a selection of items to the dark-haired young man, Rei. A large, glowing book floats in the air between them, its pages flipping rapidly as magical energy radiates from it. Jima announces that he will show him the other items as well. As the book hovers, Rei looks up in surprise. The tome is identified as Tame's Book Level 1, an item that grants the user a new skill upon use. This skill, as illustrated, allows the user to command monsters, such as a cyclops and a winged dragon, as familiars. The young man is stunned. He questions how it's possible to gain an extra skill just by using an item, especially since he only recently learned to use his own instantaneous movement skill. He reflects that while the ability to tame monsters is common in games, he has never heard of a dungeon explorer possessing such a power. Jinma then presents the next item. A brilliant, phoenix-like bird materializes, its form described as the immortal bird's feather. He explains that should the user die within a dungeon, this item will resurrect them once, restoring them to full health. He can't help but think that this is a cheat item. Jinma confirms its value, stating that resurrection items are exceedingly rare and will undoubtedly be of great use. The man continues his presentation with a grand gesture, revealing that he has prepared other powerful items as well, a treasure chest overflowing with gold, various potent potions, and a magical staff. He invites Rei to take his time and choose whatever he desires. After a moment, he makes his decision with a confident smile. He declares that he wants Tame's book. The older man, Iijima, expresses surprise, asking if he is certain and questioning the value of such an unknown skill. Jima, however, simply states that it doesn't matter. He points forward with a confident smirk, explaining that for a gamer, the appeal lies precisely in the unknown. It's a matter of romance. Jima lets out an exasperated sigh. The older, mustache man smiles, seemingly understanding. He remarks on Rei's choice, noting that instead of picking an obviously powerful item, he deliberately chose the one shrouded in mystery. He addresses Rei directly, stating that he suspected the young man was no ordinary high school student. The deputy director then presses further, asking Rei to reveal his level. Jima interjects, assuring Rei that he doesn't have to answer, though he acknowledges the young man's strength. Rei, however, decides to comply, but not without a chilling warning. If they speak of this to anyone, he will kill them. He then presents his status information as Iijima readily agrees. Upon seeing the information, both men are stunned into disbelief. Jima shouts that it's ridiculous, while Iijima stammers, unable to process what he's seeing. Level 9999, the maximum possible. As they question how such a thing could be real, Rei nonchalantly plugs his ears, complaining about the noise. His outburst subsides, and Iijima stares at the young man in awe. He murmurs that it's wonderful, confirming that his initial judgment of Rei was not mistaken. He then turns his attention to the deputy director, addressing him by name and asking if he might pose a question. After Iijima prompts him to continue, Rei asks about a specific weapon, the Sword of the World's End. He explains that he'd heard it had become a candidate for weapon creation, yet seems no one he's asked knows anything about it. He elaborates, stating his intention to craft the weapon himself, but reveals that despite his best efforts, he has been unable to find the final required material. In response, Iijima explains that the Dungeon Administration Bureau possesses information not available to the public. He reveals that while the other four materials, the Blood-Soaked Demon Eye, the Death-Guiding Staff, the Divine Dragon's Reverse Scale, and the Orichalcon Slime's Royal Jewel, are known, the final component remains a mystery, designated only by question marks. Iijima admits he has never heard the name of this weapon before, finding the entire matter intriguing. He asks if even Iijima is unaware of the final material. The deputy director apologizes, confirming he does not know, but adds that he is deeply interested and has been receiving reports on the matter from his staff, leaving Rei to ponder this new information. He listened, stunned, as Deputy Director Iijima explained a rare phenomenon. Within dungeons, a person's powerful thoughts and resolve can sometimes crystallize into a jewel, which in turn becomes an item. Ijima posited that even someone as familiar with dungeons as Rei wouldn't know of such things, and questioned whether it was truly possible to simply discard such a special, personally generated item. The words echoed in his mind. A special item. Before he could process it further, the conversation was interrupted. Ijima glanced at his watch, noting the late hour, though Jinma told him to leave if he must. An aide appeared at the door, announcing that the deputy director's next appointment was waiting. Ignoring the interruption, Ijima turned his full attention back to Rei, stating that he had a favor to ask, one that he believed only Rei could fulfill. Rei stood with a look of slight confusion, uttering a simple, questioning sound. He found himself on a bustling city street at night, with pedestrians milling about under the light of a bright moon peeking through the clouds. Walking through the crowd, his mind turned to the recent discussion about the back items with Ijima. He mused that getting involved in such troublesome matters was a pain, but conceded that he had gained something from it. His thoughts were abruptly interrupted as a figure with long, flowing hair dashed past him, weaving through the other people on the street. He watched the person go, his eyes tracking their hurried movement down the alley. Suddenly, the figure, a young woman named Karen, stopped and spun around. Flustered, she called out his name, demanding to know if he had been following her. She immediately laughed it off, greeting him cheerfully as Reikoen. She called their meeting a coincidence, explaining that she was also just out for a night walk. He noted the good timing and held out a paper bag to her. He explained that it was new streaming equipment, which should help with her account recovery and save her some trouble. Karen accepted it with a heartfelt thank you. She hugged the bag to her chest, her expression one of pure delight. Her joy overflowed into a spontaneous song about Rei's bag and Rei's scent. He looked away, a bead of sweat on his temple, and muttered about how weird she and her song were. He walks alongside Karen down the street when she calls out his name. Turning to face her, he sees a concerned look on her face as she asks what's wrong, wondering if he's gotten involved in some new trouble. She presses the issue, reminding him with her arms crossed that the situation with Jinma and the gang is still unresolved. He dismisses her concern, telling her it's nothing she needs to worry about, though his gaze drifts away pensively. He acknowledges the truth in her words, but clarifies that since he isn't part of the gang, he doesn't plan to get actively involved. In response, Karen suddenly grabs his arm, her eyes wide with an idea as she exclaims that's precisely the point. Her face flushes with excitement as she proposes a plan. They should use her streaming channel. She declares how cool it would be for a streamer to suddenly get involved in a major societal conflict. He starts to protest, but she cuts him off, cheerfully declaring the matter settled. As she hums a little tune about being an intrusion streamer, he buries his face in his hand, utterly exasperated and wondering if she heard a single word he said. His frustration gives way to a memory of a different time. He recalls Karen's earnest plea, her declaration that she loved him foolishly and would do anything, be ordered, be deceived, if it meant she could stay by his side. Returning to the present, he finds her grinning at him. She playfully asks if he's intimidated, even with his background, pointing out that he hasn't pulled his arm away from her. He internally reflects on what a strange woman she is. A new feeling begins to stir within him, an emotion he cannot yet name or understand. Despite his confusion, as she continues to cling happily to his arm, he realizes one thing. At least for now, he has no desire to force his way out of this situation. He walks down a city street at night, with Karen clinging tightly to his arm. She playfully protests his attempts to shrug her off, while he insists she let go. As they continue, a large public screen nearby flickers to life, interrupting the nighttime ambience with a breaking news alert. The broadcast shows a large building under the night sky as a reporter's voice explains that information has come in about multiple intruders connected to the Kasumi of Kyo incident. The report then shows a close-up of one of the intruders, whose eyes are described as disturbingly vacant and hollow. The following morning, the atmosphere is entirely different as students arrive at their school, the previous night's events seemingly far away. Amidst the usual morning greetings exchanged between students at the school gate, a phone begins to vibrate insistently, its screen displaying an incoming call from Ijima. The phone belongs to Rei. He stares at the screen, wondering why Ijima would be calling him at this time. His gaze lifts, and he spots the man himself, Deputy Director Ijima, standing near the gate. Rei questions why he would expose himself in such a public place. Before he can ponder it further, a piercing sound erupts from the school's public address system. A loud, urgent voice announces a potential terror threat in the vicinity, ordering everyone to evacuate to safety without delay. A piercing alarm, a national protection siren, suddenly echoes across the school grounds. An automated voice repeatedly instructs everyone to evacuate to a safe location. Students look up, startled and confused. One identifies the siren, used only when the nation is in peril, while another shouts for everyone to run. Rei Omomo looks up, wondering if this is a large-scale terrorist attack. He quickly realizes the gravity of the situation. As chaos erupts and students scramble for safety, a teacher frantically directs them to get inside the school building as quickly as possible. Amidst the fleeing crowd, he pulls out his phone and urgently calls for Ijima, expressing relief when the call connects. He begins to explain the situation, but on the other end of the line, Deputy Director Ijima cuts in, stating that he understands and that things are even worse than they had imagined. His expression turns grim as he delivers the critical information over the phone. They were specifically targeted. As Rei processes this, Ijima directs him to the Dungeon Investigation Agency, asking if he remembers their previous conversation. Ray confirms that he does. His eyes widen in shock as he listens from hiding spot. Ijima explains that the recent attack on the gang members under Ray's protection was merely a diversion. The true target, he reveals, was the Dungeon Management Bureau, which is deeply intertwined with the Dungeon Investigation Agency. The agency's duties are extensive, encompassing the collection of monster data, the structural mapping of dungeons across Japan, and the maintenance of internal communication systems. Ijima concludes that their enemy is an organization dedicated to investigating everything related to dungeons. This threat is personified by a group of imposing figures in dark suits and top hats, one of whom points a pistol forward with cold intent. In a private room, Ray confirmed Deputy Director Ijima's suspicion. He stated that while the investigation was ongoing, there is no doubt that the Dungeon Investigation Agency had remained silent about the incident. He clarified that his involvement was merely a coincidence. He had found it strange that the older brother of the Onizuka family was leading the organization, and, even more puzzling, that the country seemed to be backing them. Listening to this, Jima Bakurono deduced that it must have been the Onizuka family who initiated contact with the Dungeon Investigation Agency, not the other way around. Ijima adjusted his glasses, agreeing that the possibility was high. He then revealed a critical piece of information. A stimulant had been detected in the system of the violent gang member who had collapsed earlier. Ray reacted with surprise, asking about the drug. Ijima explained that while its exact nature was still unknown, the discovery of its source pointed to the Dungeon Investigation Agency itself, suggesting they were conducting illicit experiments on the gang. The deputy director remarked that the situation had escalated significantly. Ray listened in silence, his expression hardening as he absorbed the implications. He then looked directly at Ray, stating his belief that the young man was somehow the key to resolving the entire affair. Elsewhere, Ray sat by a car, recalling the agency staff at the search and wondering why they would approach him directly. The conversation continued over the phone, with Ijima's tone turning grim. He reported that he had been unable to contact someone since the previous day and warned Ray that the agency might be hiding something, which would explain their willingness to break the law. He gave a stark order: do not report anything about the dungeon's secret. Ray's eyes widened in shock. Slumped against the car, Ray processed the grave warning, repeating the words to himself, the dungeon's secret. His thoughts were shattered by a sudden commotion. He looked up, startled, to see his classmate Karen Miyamoto being violently grabbed by a man in a uniform, her face twisted in terror. He stares at his phone in disbelief. On the screen, Karen cries out for help, her face contorted in terror. His shock turns to confusion as he recognizes the attacker's uniform. Why would the police be doing this? The man's face is a grotesque mask, his eyes rolled back in white, muttering incoherently as he advances. The situation is far worse than he imagined. In a narrow alleyway, Karen is seized by the uniformed man, while several others just like him, all with the same dead, white eyes, close and around her. A panicked cry echoes through the street, questioning what these monstrous beings truly are. A sudden, bizarre assault unfolds in the street. A young man with dark hair looks on in disbelief, wondering what is happening. Below him, a horde of men in dark uniforms, their faces twisted into monstrous visages, advances on him and a young woman with light-colored hair. She questions what these creatures could possibly be. The creatures lunge. One drives a sharp weapon into the dark-haired man's back, causing him to grit his teeth in pain. The young woman cries out as another attacker swings a heavy wooden plank at him. He curses his assailants, his expression hardening with fury. He reacts with incredible speed, unleashing a flurry of kicks that send spherical projectiles hurtling toward the uniformed monsters. As his attacks connect, one of the creatures raises a pistol and fires, the bullets sparking against a nearby surface. The young man presses his advantage, bringing a powerful, downward strike onto another creature. He roars for it to perish as the monster staggers back from the force of the blow. His fist smashes into the creature's face with crushing force. As the monster collapses, the revolver it was holding tumbles from its grasp. He deftly catches the weapon midair. His focus immediately shifts to the young woman, who has been seized by another attacker. With the revolver now aimed, he commands the creature to release her. Before he needs to fire, she takes matters into her own hands. Twisting with surprising agility, she delivers a devastating kick directly to her captor's head. The monster gurgles in agony, its face shattered by the impact. The young woman lets out a terrified scream, shaken by the violence of her own counterattack. Seeing her distress, the dark-haired man shouts for her to evacuate to the school immediately. Startled but obedient, she agrees and begins to run. As she flees down the alley, she calls back a word of thanks. He remains, revolver held steady, turning his attention to the next challenge. He cocks the hammer of the revolver, the metallic click echoing in the tense silence. He asks them if they're prepared for what is to come. He stands firm before the advancing horde, issuing a stark warning. The first one to make a suspicious move will be shot down. Suddenly, the roar of a motorcycle engine shatters the standoff. A young man in a school uniform appears, his face a mask of rage. He furiously demands to know how such paltry police officers could possibly think they could defeat him. The uniformed monsters flinch, taken aback by the outburst. The source of the engine's roar is revealed as another young man on a large motorcycle slides to a stop, interrupting the confrontation. The dark-haired mage and the uniformed men alike turn their heads, startled by this new arrival. The rider is not alone. An entire biker gang arrives behind him, led by a confident man in sunglasses. The leader smirks, assessing the chaotic scene before them with a quiet, knowing remark. The young man with intense eyes narrows his gaze, analyzing the situation. He wonders if he's facing a common street gang, members of the Kanda group, or perhaps another organization entirely. He finds himself cornered in an alley, confronted by a line of uniformed men from the Dungeon Investigation Agency and a biker gang. The lead officer remarks on the large welcoming party, questioning why they are so determined to deal with it. His thoughts are violently interrupted. Before him, the bikers and other thugs begin to convulse, their bodies twisting as a dark, corrupting energy erupts from their skin. One of the larger thugs lets out a guttural scream, his face a mask of agony and horror. The transformation consumes him, his muscles bulging grotesquely as his jaw distorts. The transformed men, now monstrous beasts restrained by heavy chains, snarl with murderous intent. The young man realizes he is hopelessly outnumbered just as a uniformed agent points a pistol directly at him. The lead thug, fully transformed and seething with rage, glares at him. The uniformed officer taunts him, acknowledging his strength in a dungeon, but questioning if he can possibly win against such numbers in the real world. The young man stands his ground, now armed with a baseball bat. He quickly changes tactics, the bat gone, replaced by a small revolver held firmly in his hand. As he weighs his options in the tense standoff, an unexpected sight startles his opponents. The wheel of a bicycle speeding into view. A squadron of students on bicycles charges down the alley, roaring a collective war cry. Onizuka is among them, his face a mask of fierce determination as they pedal furiously towards the fray. The charge continues, a chaotic wave of school uniforms and spinning wheels. Karen is now visible near the front of the pack, her expression matching the intensity of her classmates. She stands on her pedals, raising a fist to rally the others. "Let's go, everyone," she shouts. "Show them the strength of Ririn High School." The students slam into the line of uniformed men, sending them flying as the young man watches in stunned silence. He turned to the girl beside him, his expression a mix of shock and concern, demanding to know why she had returned. She called out Omomo's name with unwavering resolve. Inspired, the intense schoolboy roared for everyone to support their friend. With a unified cry, the students agreed to join the fray, shouting for the charge to begin. Their charge drew the ire of the uniformed aggressor. He bellowed at the students, calling them fools and insisting they couldn't possibly win. He sneered, mentioning that he'd heard Omomo had saved the girl, and ordered them all to flee immediately. As they ran, one of the students declared that they could no longer stand by as mere spectators. The intense schoolboy affirmed this sentiment, vowing that they would not allow Omomo to be harmed, even if it meant getting seriously injured themselves. His resolve hardening, he addressed the others, explaining that they had stood by and watched Omomo suffer for far too long. He declared with conviction that this time, it was their turn to protect him, and therefore, they must be allowed to fight. This fierce loyalty stemmed from a painful memory. As a small boy, he had stood alone, surrounded by a crowd of indistinct figures. Whispers circulated among them, labeling him the child of a gangster, a pariah not to be approached. With his eyes cast downward, the young man utters a single name, Bakano. His expression then shifts, his eyes widening in dawning comprehension. In the next moment, he is part of a massive crowd of students surging through the street. With a collective roar, they charge, vowing not to let their adversaries cause any great harm. The charge erupts into a chaotic brawl. Onizuka yells for his comrades to advance, throwing a punch as students and uniformed men clash violently with the thugs. Amidst the swirling melee, the dark-haired student becomes the eye of the storm, his face set with fierce determination as he aims a small, ornate device forward. Watching from a safe distance, the ponytailed classmate holds up her phone. She addresses Omomo-kun, a small smile playing on her lips as she states that thanks to him, she has been freed from her tormentors. She declares her intention to broadcast his bravery to the entire world, noting that calling the police would be meaningless. Holding up a small gift, she says it's the least she can do for him. Her phone screen reveals a live stream that has already attracted over 108,000 viewers. Comments pour in, expressing shock that a gang and police are attacking students, cheering for Omomo-kun, and marveling at the rapidly growing audience. Back in the fray, Omomo blocks a heavy blow from the large, shirtless thug. He realizes the man is targeting him specifically and wonders if this is the effect of the rumored drug. He discerns that his opponent is timing his attacks to match his own movements. Rather than a threat, he sees an opportunity. He decides to draw the enemy's attention, and another student shouts his understanding of the plan. Suddenly, a new student calmly surveys the battlefield, counting 5 enemies to his right and 4 to his left. With a confident call for them to come at him, he leaps forward, unleashing a single, powerful kick that sends a group of thugs flying. He immediately launched into action, a single powerful kick sending a cluster of thugs flying through the air. As they crashed to the ground, another student yelled for him to press the attack. He moved swiftly past the fallen bodies, his focus unbroken. One of the students, a blond boy, stared in disbelief, shouting that the newcomer was a monster and shouldn't be underestimating their school. In his wake, the courtyard fell silent, littered with the unconscious forms of their attackers. The The remaining students stared in awe, one of them tentatively asking if the fight was truly over. Another classmate confirmed that it appeared to be. Their gazes remained fixed on the lone fighter who had turned the tide, a mixture of relief and astonishment on their faces. The tension broke, and the students erupted into cheers, celebrating their unexpected victory. The blonde student playfully made finger guns while others pumped their fists in triumph. Their praise for the newcomer, whom they called Omamo-kun, was effusive. They marveled at his strength and commented on how his strategy was flawless, taking out all the key opponents with single strikes. Amidst the celebration, one student with glasses noticed Omomo's somber expression. He approached, asking what was wrong, but Omomo simply turned away, instructing everyone to get inside the school building immediately. He then turned back to face the confused students, his gaze hard. He warned them that he wasn't sure if he could protect them this time, leaving them stunned and questioning what he meant. On a city street, a horde of uniformed men with monstrous, vacant eyes closes in. The one in front points directly at a young man, identifying him by name, Omomo. His classmates stand behind him, frozen in shock and disbelief. The dark-haired mage's face is cast in shadow, his fists clenched as he denies what he's seen. He turns to them with a hardened gaze, warning that the next battle won't be a game and ordering them to run. One of his friends, his face pale with fear, asks if Omomo truly intends to fight the horde by himself. Facing the monstrous crowd once more, he tells his friends they've done well to make it this far. He insists they leave the rest to him, explaining that he is the enemy's sole target. His classmate protests, pleading for the chance to fight and be of some use. The dark-haired mage shouts back that it's impossible, they'll be killed. Still, his friend insists. The argument is cut short by the screech of tires. A car speeds recklessly down the narrow street, causing the dark-haired mage to look over in surprise, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. The vehicle plows directly through the uniformed monsters, sending bodies flying and scattering the crowd in a wave of destruction. His classmates can only watch, their faces etched with horror. It continues its violent charge, clearing a path through the remaining assailants. The dark-haired mage stares, stunned by the sudden and brutal intervention. The car screeches to a halt just before him. From the driver's seat, a voice calmly remarks that heroes are always late to the party. The masked driver removes his disguise, revealing the scarred, eye-patch-wearing face of the man known as Jinma. The dark-haired mage looks on with a sly grin, addressing him by name. Inside the vehicle, he straightens his tie, explaining that it would be problematic if his identity were revealed. He instructs the young mage to use something in his stead, urging him to fight to his heart's content. With the rabbit mask back on, he presents a dark, crystalline object. He declares that with this, even 10,000 policemen would be no match for his master, and tells him to show the foolish officers his true power. Now outside, the dark-haired mage stands before a new group of adversaries. An entire assembly of men in dark suits and domino masks awaits him, poised for confrontation. He announces that he has kept them waiting as dark energy swirls around him. Another young man in a school uniform appears at his side, a confident smirk on his face. The mage declares the beginning of the second round. Amidst the chaos, a young man with dark, spiky hair stands with a confident smirk, dark energy swirling around his arm. His school uniform is torn, but he seems unfazed. Addressing the uniformed men before him, he announces that he's kept them waiting and that it's time for round two. He lunges forward in a blur of motion. The dark energy solidifies into sharp, violent tendrils as he unleashes a devastating strike, roaring for the bastards to take this. The impact is immense, creating a blinding explosion of force that sends the uniformed men and shattered debris flying violently in every direction. From a distance, his classmates, including Onizuka, can only stare with expressions of utter shock. Meanwhile, the man in the rabbit mask watches calmly from his vehicle as the uniformed men are thrown about by the blast. The entire confrontation is being broadcast live. On a smartphone screen, comments from viewers flood the feed, questioning what is happening, how such power is possible, and if any of it is real. One person exclaims that this Omomo-kun is clearly not human. The watching students remain stunned, with the girl in the ponytail asking what is going on and wondering if they're watching a movie. Below them, the fallen uniformed men begin to stir, their bodies twitching and rising from the ground in a grotesque, unnatural manner. The fighter notices his opponents getting back on their feet, realizing they're no ordinary adversaries. One of the men aims a strange, multi-barreled weapon at him and fires a volley of glowing projectiles. The nearby students cry out in alarm. In response to the attack, he calmly raises a hand. Instantly, massive crystalline pillars erupt from the ground, forming an impenetrable shield that shatters the incoming projectiles upon impact. His classmates stare in disbelief, wondering where the bullets went and how they were blocked. With the immediate threat neutralized, the fighter's expression hardens. He declares that he is their enemy and warns them not to involve anyone else, a glowing seal visible on his palm. He faces the lead aggressor, whose subordinate still has the weapon aimed. With cold determination, the fighter informs them that he's going to end this now. He channels his power, a dark, crackling energy that coalesces around him. The uniformed men are thrown back, their bodies caught in swirling tendrils of shadow. With a determined look, he identifies his technique, an earth-based ultimate magic. The energy erupts outwards in a devastating blast he calls wall smash. The very ground shatters and explodes, sending the lead aggressor flying helplessly through the air. His body collides with a wall with bone-jarring force. The man's face contorts in a silent scream of agony and disbelief as the impact reverberates through him. The uniformed aggressors are violently thrown back, the ground shattering around them from an unseen force. A group of students, including a blonde boy, watch in utter shock, while a man in a cartoonish rabbit mask observes the chaos with unnerving calm. The source of the power reveals himself. The dark-haired mage stands amidst the rubble, a wisp of dark energy dissipating from his raised hand. He coolly announces that the elimination is complete as the last of the uniformed men lie defeated at his feet. His classmates rush toward him, their fear replaced with awe. They exclaim that Umamo is amazing, truly incredible. The mage, however, seems unfazed, stating that this should keep them safe for a while. They crowd around him, full of questions. One student asks how he created that shockwave, noting that it didn't look like the movement of a normal person at all. Inside a car, the mage reflects on his actions, realizing with some frustration that he shouldn't have revealed his use of a dungeon status. The rabbit-masked driver interrupts his thoughts, informing him that he has a call from someone named Ijima. He tells his classmates not to worry, as he'll be fine on his own. When asked about the rabbit-masked individual, he deflects, telling them not to pry into various matters as it's too much trouble. Now seated in the passenger seat, he prepares to leave. The students accept his decision because it's Umamo's wish. He bids them farewell, adding that this incident has made him reconsider his opinion of them. As the car pulls away, the students watch in silence, a mixture of awe and contemplation on their faces. A moment later, the entire group of students, led by the confident fighter, snaps to attention, their expressions hardened with a newfound resolve. From a departing car, the dark-haired mage glances back at them. His expression is one of pure annoyance as he demands to know what they think they're doing, accusing them of imitating a military troop. He sat in the back of the car, watching his classmates through the window. They were thinking that he, Umamo, had become exactly like the rumors circulating online about the blood-soaked silencer. The students declared their intention to see him off in a grand, Yakuza-like fashion. The confident fighter stepped forward, proclaiming that Umamo was now their leader. The mage could only stare back, utterly bewildered. He quietly muttered the word, leader. The sound of the driver, shifting slightly, was the only response. His classmates shouted encouragement, admitting they didn't know what he was doing, but promising they would wait for his safe return. A faint smile touched his lips as he replied, see you later. The car then accelerated, pulling away from the curb and leaving the crowd of uniformed students behind. Inside the moving vehicle, he asked about their next destination. A man sitting across from him, Deputy Director Ijima, explained that a mist was involved. The mage questioned if it was a dungeon, and Ijima confirmed, specifying it was a government-exclusive one. He absorbed the information, his mind racing. A government-exclusive dungeon. He had heard rumors about such a thing, but to think it was real. Ijima elaborated that it was a top-secret location somewhere in the country, containing items and monsters so dangerous they had to be sealed away. He added that for safety reasons, even the police were forbidden from entering, which is why his own opinion carried weight. The mage finally accepted that such a place truly existed. Leaning his head against his hand, he sighed. Yeah, that's right, he conceded to himself. This has become a real pain. A sudden, chilling presence made him jolt. He turned his head to find the twin-tailed girl sitting right beside him, her eyes dark and unervingly hollow. He sat in the car, now dressed in his school uniform, as the man with the eye patch barked an order to head for the Yoshimori residence. The young mage, stunned, questioned the sudden change of plans. The man explained that the girl had been with him the entire time and was now in grave danger, a likely target for both the police and other violent groups. Their vehicle skidded to a stop just as they arrived. Outside a two-story building, a group of menacing men had already cornered the twin-tailed girl on an external staircase. Inside the car, the man with the eye patch slammed his fist down in frustration. On the stairs, she stood her ground, demanding to know who the intruders were. She threatened to call the authorities, but her defiance was met with a brutal kick that sent her stumbling backward. Before the man could press his advantage, the dark-haired mage launched himself forward, his fist connecting squarely with the thug's face. He felt her arms wrap around him from behind. She confessed how frightened she had been, and he turned his head to comfort her, assuring her that she was safe now. The brief moment of peace was shattered by the roar of gunfire. He spotted another assailant armed with a submachine gun and yelled a warning as a spray of bullets tore through the air, splintering the concrete around them. His eyes widened in disbelief at the sight of the automatic weapon. Just then, the man with the eye patch appeared, ordering them to get into the car immediately and save the discussion for later. The young mage complied without hesitation, pulling the girl along with him toward the vehicle. A dark sedan speeds away from a confrontation, kicking up dust and debris. A voice from within urges the driver, Jinma, to go. Inside the speeding vehicle, the twin-tailed swordswoman expresses her shock, exclaiming that the police and a gang have joined forces. The dark-haired mage grimly confirms it, concluding that their goal is to eliminate it. The driver, the eye-patch man, calmly announces to his young master that they have arrived. Beside him, the twin-tailed swordswoman looks on with a troubled expression, lamenting how things have escalated so drastically without her knowledge. He pulls the car to a stop before the gates of a large, stately building, its architecture suggesting a significant government facility. As they exit the vehicle, Deputy Director Ijima greets them with a smile, expressing his relief that all three have made it safely. The dark-haired mage immediately asks where the government-exclusive dungeon is located. Ijima holds up a small, ornate pin, explaining that while there is one, it would be much faster to simply show them. At his word, a point of light appears in the distance before them, rapidly expanding and sending out crackling tendrils of energy across the open field. The swirling energy coalesces, forming a distinct and complex symbol. A circle intersected by a cross and flanked by two hammers. This symbol solidifies into a massive, ornate stone gate that materializes with a thunderous crash. The group stares up at it, awestruck, as the dark-haired mage and the twin-tailed swordswoman realize this must be the government-exclusive dungeon. But as they take in the sight, the dark-haired mage suddenly cries out, clutching his head as an intense pain shoots through him. The twin-tailed swordswoman and the eye-patch man turn to him in alarm, asking what's wrong. He is overwhelmed by a terrifying vision. A monstrous, horned silhouette with glowing eyes, surrounded by distorted static. The vision shatters as he gasps, his eyes wide with shock. He feels as though he just caught a fleeting glimpse of something in the back of his mind. The others rush to his side, with Jima asking if he is all right and the swordswoman urging him not to worry. He clutches his chest, still shaken, but tells Deputy Director Ijima to continue. Ijima explains that just before the police were overrun, a strange anomaly occurred inside the dungeon. According to reports, a bizarre miasma began to emanate from it, and the attack by the Kanda group happened immediately after. Hearing this, Jima demands clarification, asking if Ijima is suggesting the dungeon itself caused the incident. Ijima replies that the miasma was still present when he closed the gate, though he has no confirmation of its source yet. He listens intently, the pieces falling into place. He understands now. They hadn't brought him to the government-exclusive dungeon just for his safety. They wanted him to resolve this strange anomaly, likely because Ijima had seen his maxed-out status before. His deduction is confirmed when Ijima pleads with him to help them through this crisis. The swordswoman looks on as Rei agrees, stating he has just one condition. He then specifies his terms. He will not be the one leading the dungeon assault. Instead, he insists that the swordswoman, Yashirin, be designated as the lead. She reacts with stunned disbelief. Despite her shock, Ijima considers the request for a moment before chuckling softly. He agrees to the demand, accepting Rei's terms. With the deal struck, his thoughts turn inward. He has no desire to play the part of a hero who saves the world. Born as the outcast son of a Yakuza boss, he had been content to live an ordinary high school life. He had only ever been an observer, watching as others, with a misguided sense of justice, knowingly risked their lives by charging headfirst into danger against Yakuza and police. His thoughts drifted to a memory of a smiling, bespectacled friend in a hat, who once spoke of how Rei had accepted him. The memory shifted to another intense face, a classmate who admitted he was only able to fight because Rei had looked past his status as a gang leader's son. This recollection seemed to steel his resolve, as even someone like him could inspire others. His internal reflection was interrupted by the present. A crowd of allies and officials, including the eye-patch man and Deputy Director Ijima, had gathered to see them off. The twin-tailed swordswoman waved cheerfully as the group called out encouragement to both her and Rei. A confident smirk touched his lips. He decided he would simply give it his all. "Let's go," he stated, ready to move. With their purpose set, the team advanced. Led by Rei and the twin-tailed swordswoman, they stepped through the shimmering portal and into the unknown territory of the dungeon. A group of four stands before a colossal, ornate gateway, ready to step into an unknown territory. With a decisive slam, the massive doors seal shut behind them, startling the dark-haired young man and his companions. The sudden closure reveals their true location, a single, massive stone cube adrift in a cloudy, endless void. All around them, countless other cubes float aimlessly, some bound by heavy chains, creating a disorienting, impossible landscape. The field of stone islands stretches as far as the eye can see, a silent, floating archipelago against the pale sky. Navigating this strange terrain, the twin-tailed swordswoman expresses her bewilderment, asking what this place could be. Deputy Director Ijima walks ahead, calmly confirming her suspicion. They are, indeed, inside a dungeon. The dark-haired mage pauses, his gaze fixed on a nearby cube as it drifts silently past him. He observes that the blocks move in a regular pattern, deducing they must leap from one to the next. The man with the eye patch agrees, remarking that it's a mechanism unlike any he has encountered. Beside them, the swordswoman voices her concern, questioning what lies in the abyss below and pointing out the significant distance between the platforms. Her fear gets the better of her as she peers into the dark void below. A terrified scream escapes her lips, and she collapses to the ground, overwhelmed by the sheer impossibility of their situation and the sudden, jarring movements of the platform. As she struggles with her fear, Deputy Director Ijima begins to explain. He clarifies that, as they can see, this dungeon is distinct from all others. The dark-haired mage listens, understanding the implication. If the dungeon structure is unique, then the items that can be collected within it must also be different. He continues, his expression thoughtful as he recalls the history of this place. When it was first discovered, he explains the staff who named it referred to it as an excavation. The term strikes a chord with the dark-haired mage and the swordswoman, their eyes widening in shock. He voices his disbelief, stating that this place was supposed to be known as Lindia's dungeon. He suddenly stumbles, a sharp pain coursing through him. The twin-tailed swordswoman rushes to his side, calling out his name in alarm, while the eye-patch man and deputy director, Ijima, look on. His mind races as he clutches his chest. He wonders why this is happening again, why he feels a connection to a name he's certain he's heard before, despite this being his first time in this place. He pushes through the pain, reassuring the concerned swordswoman that he's fine and doesn't need a doctor. Turning to the others, his expression hardens as he demands to know what they mean by having excavated the name Lindia's dungeon. Deputy Director Ijima explains that, according to the staff member who made the discovery, they found a stone slab with that name inscribed upon it. He adds, however, that they have since lost contact with that individual and his current whereabouts are unknown. The young mage stares at his own hand, lost in thought. He questions what awaits them deeper inside this place, and why his own body is undergoing such a strange transformation. He sets his jaw with determination. Announcing that they will proceed, he vows to protect everyone and warns them all to be on guard for any unforeseen events. His companions voice their assent. The twin-tailed swordswoman agrees with a firm Ijima adjusts his glasses, and the eye-patch man gives a curt acknowledgement. Their resolve is tested immediately as a massive, monstrous wolf materializes from thin air. The force of its appearance sends the blonde-suited man flying, while the dark-haired mage is thrown off balance, and the swordswoman begins to conjure a spell. The beast lunges, but Ijima reacts first, shouting as he unleashes a volley of magical rings that slam into the creature's face. The swordswoman, calling out to him, declares that the monster will not escape as she gathers the power for her ice magic. While the blonde-suited man is still airborne, the eye-patch man shouts an order to the swordswoman. She cries out the dark-haired mage's name as he leaps high above the fray, poising himself for a devastating downward strike on the wolf. He descended with furious purpose, plunging his weapon through the monstrous two-headed wolf. With a guttural cry for it to die, he drove the blade home, silencing the beast's snarls in a final, brutal strike. As the creature's body dissolved into dust around him, the eye-patch man sought confirmation. Is it done? The dark-haired mage simply affirmed. Yeah. Nearby, the twin-tailed swordswoman observed with a mixture of awe and concern, noting that she had never encountered such a creature in any other dungeon. Her relief was short-lived. A wave of dizziness washed over the twin-tailed swordswoman, her vision swimming for a moment. Looking up, she felt a droplet on her skin and saw more falling from the cavern ceiling. Confused, she wondered aloud, Rain? A young man with dark hair clutches his head in pain, realizing he's been afflicted with a status ailment. Looking up, he sees the culprit, a witch with light, curly hair, who cackles menacingly as she descends on a broomstick through the rain. The witch prepares to cast another spell, energy crackling around her. The dark-haired man grits his teeth in frustration, muttering about now having to deal with a witch. He attempts to charge forward, but the ailment makes his movements sluggish and heavy, leaving a trail of energy in his way. As he struggles, a massive blast of magical energy erupts behind him. His companions, the man with the eye patch and the twin-tailed swordswoman, cry out his name in alarm as he turns to face the explosion. The witch laughs triumphantly from her broom, her eyes glowing with malevolent power. Below, the man with the eye patch can only curse her name as she unleashes her devastating attack. Her magic slams into its target, but instead of destroying it, the energy is violently repelled in a blinding flash. The witch screams in shock. The dark-haired man sees a notification for an available extra skill, Magic Attack Reflection, and wonders if he should use it. He stands within a complex array of magical circles, realizing that without this newly available skill, he would have been in grave danger. His companions rush to his side, the twin-tailed swordswoman expressing her relief that he's unharmed. The blonde man observes that while their leader is fine, the rest of them, being only level 30 or 40, might have died. The man with the eye patch confidently tells him not to worry, as he is level 50 and will protect him. The swordswoman agrees. The dark-haired man, however, warns them not to let their guard down, as they are in a boss area. Internally, he finds their reliance on him to be a burden. The group of four now stands before a colossal, ornate door. Intimidating, eye-like symbols are carved into its surface, and mist swirls at its base, hinting at the powerful foe that waits within. Standing before the great door, the dark-haired mage is struck by an unsettling thought. He wonders why this place, which he has never seen before, feels so strangely familiar. He pushes the heavy doors open. With a deep groan, they part to reveal a vast, empty throne room. Atop a distant dais sits a small, winged silhouette. As they enter, the figure rises, revealing its true form, a towering, horned demon with massive wings. It is the second demon god, Fegnia Yugnit. With a sinister smile, he announces that they have finally arrived. The demon god laughs, remarking on what a distasteful creature the mage is. The young man stares back, shocked and bewildered by the sudden appearance of this powerful being. His gaze fixes on the mage. He addresses him not by his name, but as Lynch's, asking if he doesn't recognize that they are kindred spirits. The mage is left speechless, utterly confused by the name. The demon's words trigger a sharp pain in his chest. He recoils, shouting back at Fegnia, demanding to know what he's talking about, and telling him to stop spouting nonsense. He collapses to his knees, overwhelmed by the agony. The twin-tailed swordswoman cries out his name, Rei-kun, as she and the man with the eye patch rush to his side. The man, Jinma, asks with urgency if the pain is back again. As the pain intensifies, a fragmented vision flashes through his mind. The demon god, Fegnia, standing among other monstrous beings. He grits his teeth, wondering what this memory is. He clutches his head, trying to fight off the intrusive images. He thinks to himself that this has nothing to do with him, desperately questioning what has happened. From his throne, Fegnia lets out a triumphant laugh, urging him to remember. As the swordswoman holds the collapsed mage, telling him to stay strong, Jima glares at the demon god and roars, "You monster! What did you do to Rei-sama?" As he collapses, a memory floods his mind. A younger version of himself, face contorted with frustration, questions the world around him. The demon lord's voice rings in his ears, asking if he ever felt that something was amiss, even as he relentlessly pushed through dungeons. The young man wonders to himself why his level was rising at such an abnormal speed. The memory intensifies. The young man sweats, demanding to know what the demon lord is trying to say. Fegnia's voice continues its assault, questioning how he could remain so calm despite being trained in dungeons and tormented by demons every single day. In the present, the dark-haired mage remains on the floor, clutching his head in agony as the demon god looms over him and his concerned companions. As the twin-tailed swordswoman restrains the dark-haired mage, their allies look on in shock. The eye-patch-wearing man exclaims at the sudden speed of the events unfolding, while the mage, with a pained expression, states that the answer to their confusion is simple. His mind flashes back to a vision of himself kneeling before a colossal demonic figure. The being, Demon Lord Fegnia, declares that the young man is no ordinary human, revealing his own identity as the fourth demon god, Zoroa Lendius. He continues, explaining that the mage has been commanded by the great demon god, the same master Fegnia serves, to bring about the destruction of the world. The mage's face contorts with anguish and intensity at the revelation. A cruel smirk spreads across his face as his massive wing begins to move, a low sound of acknowledgement escaping his lips. Back in the present, the twin-tailed swordswoman leaps between Fegnia and the mage, blocking the impending attack. She shouts at the demon lord not to speak so selfishly, then turns to the despondent mage, insisting that he is Rei, not some demon lord. Her defiance is echoed by the eye-patch-wearing man, who steps forward to shield her. He declares that Rei is the young master of the Kana group and has absolutely no connection to a creature like Fegnia. He glares at the demon, demanding to know what he means. Fegnia merely chuckles, amused by their conviction. He dismissively asks if that's what they truly believe, challenging them to consider the reality of the situation. He then turns his attention back to the dark-haired mage, addressing him as Lendius. Fegnia states that the key to their shared mission, the sword of the world's end, must be located within the young man's item box. In response to his words, a torrent of dark energy begins to coalesce around the mage's body, forming a swirling black orb below him. The onlookers stare in horror, the man with the eye patch stammering in disbelief at the sight. The energy erupts violently from his back in the shape of shadowy wings, forcing a cry of agony from his lips as the transformation takes hold. His transformation intensified as a torrent of black energy erupted from his eye, a physical manifestation of the agony racking his body. Within the chaotic surge, primal thoughts echoed, "Kill the humans. They are an obstacle. Destroy the world." The raw power overwhelmed him, flooding his mind with every negative emotion, anger, sorrow, and resentment. The twin-tailed swordswoman cried out his name, asking what was wrong, but her voice was lost in his torment. As he suffered, Deputy Director Ijima explained the grim reality of their situation. He stated that items born in dungeons are sometimes created from a person's strong will, becoming treasures. He realized with horror that the final material needed to complete the sword of the world's end was the young man's own despair. The swirling mass of dark energy began to coalesce, taking the form of a greatsword. Watching from above, Demon Lord Fegnia recognized it instantly as the product of the mage's deep-seated resentment. Instead of solidifying, the sword-shaped energy violently erupted outwards, engulfing the entire area in tendrils of pure darkness and forcing his allies back. The swordswoman and Ijima desperately called out his name, but the man with the eye patch, grasping the true horror of the situation, roared at them to run. He knew that if they stayed, it would be the end. Fegnia's face split into a wide, triumphant grin. The time had finally come. Below, within the darkness, a monstrous, serpentine eye snapped open, devoid of all humanity. The transformation was complete. The demon god Lendias had sacrificed himself, becoming the very sword of the world's end, a colossal, multi-headed serpent creature. The swordswoman and the man with the eye patch could only stare in utter shock and horror as the monstrous being loomed over them, a cataclysm of writhing scales and fangs. Fegnia's voice echoed with finality. The world was now invited to its end. The twin-tailed swordswoman, Miyamoto Karen, stands frozen in terror before a colossal demon whose head is a mass of writhing snakes. She clutches her throat, certain that she will never forget the events of this day. In a different moment, she stands beside the eye patch man and deputy director, Ijima, her expression one of disbelief. She wonders what exactly she is witnessing, unable to process the scene before them. From a high perch, the demon Lord Fegnia glares down, demanding to know what has been done to his subordinate. The snake demon below snarls, its voice a low growl promising to kill the humans. He then smirks at the eye patch man, explaining that he merely allowed the fourth demon god, Rendias, to return to its true form. The eye patch man reacts with stunned disbelief. Rendias writhes, its form dissolving amidst theatrical masks and scattered money. The demon reflects on its deep-seated hatred for humanity. Fegnia continues, his eyes narrowed, stating that he cannot forgive humans who would trample others to satisfy their own desires. The eye patch man listens intently, his expression grim. He explains that the lingering resentment of the demon clan is like a curse, a profound wish to see humanity annihilated. This final, potent resentment, he reveals, became the ultimate trigger, completing the creation of the world-ending magic sword. Karen stares at a status window, displaying the details of this very sword. She recalls Reikuin telling her it would appear, yet she had never heard of such a weapon, not even from online intelligence. As she and the eye patch man walk away from Rendias' remains, the truth dawns on her. The demon's memories were used as a trigger, and now the resulting weapon had appeared in Reikuin's status window. As the group reeled from his revelation, Demon Lord Fegnia continued his explanation with a sinister grin. He clarified that while monsters born in a dungeon typically cannot leave, Rendias was originally human before his demonization, creating a unique loophole. He then posed a chilling question to his stunned audience, asking them what they imagined the outcome of such a situation would be. The horrifying implication struck the twin-tailed swordswoman, her eyes widening as she gasped, realizing the terrible possibility. In response to her unspoken fear, Fegnia let out a triumphant roar. He declared that Rendias himself would emerge from the dungeon to slaughter every human in his path. Clutching his chest, Deputy Director Ijima furiously accused the Demon Lord of orchestrating the attack on his subordinates. Fegnia calmly and simply affirmed that it was indeed his work. The method of his plan becomes clear. A group of agents in dark suits and eerie, blank-faced masks had moved through the city, taking over the consciousness of key individuals to escort the still-living Rendias to the surface. The Deputy Director processed this grim information, realizing with dawning horror that the Yakuza, the police, and even his own dungeon investigation agency had been compromised. The terrifying result of this infiltration stands before them. The massive, serpentine form of Rendias is coiled in the open street, having been brought to the surface. The snake demon explains that this entire series of events was merely a prelude to restore his true form. He confirms to the stunned heroes that he is not a mere copy, but the genuine article. The twin-tailed swordswoman cries out the dark-haired mage's name, shocked that the demon is still conscious. Rendias affirms that he is, his voice a low growl, and begins to utter a command for them to flee. Observing the scene from a distance, Demon Lord Fegnia seems unimpressed. He mutters to himself that this display from Rendias is rather boring. He watched the colossal demon below, a hint of suspicion in his voice. He mused aloud, questioning whether Rendias had developed some misplaced affection for the humans. On the street below, the snake demon loomed over the lone swordswoman. A guttural whisper escaped him, a repeated command for her to flee, even uttering a name. Karen. She clutched her chest, tears welling in her eyes, as she heard his voice through the monstrous form. She told him not to be absurd. Watching from a safe distance, Deputy Director Ijima asked Jinma if they should attempt to restore Rei to his original form for the sake of the world. Jinma ignored the question, instead roaring a warning to Karen that it was too dangerous to get any closer. Her gaze, however, remained fixed and unwavering. She shouted back, her voice filled with emotion, declaring that none of that mattered to her at all. Her hand tightened around the grip of her wooden practice sword. She then leveled the weapon at the towering demon, reminding him of her promise, that she would pursue him no matter where he went. Tears streamed down her face as she pleaded with him, begging him not to let their bond be severed simply because he had been transformed into a demon god. With her plea hanging in the air, she took a firm step forward. Jima watched her advance, acknowledging her unwavering resolve. The demon's voice softened, addressing her with a title of great respect, Reisama. He declared that as the one who had watched over her since childhood, he would now risk his own life to see her return to her original state. Elsewhere, observing the unfolding chaos, the eye-patch-wearing man, Jinma, watched with a knowing smirk. That was more like it, he mused. Anything less, and one would not be qualified to call themselves an executive of the Kana Group. Inside a stone chamber, Deputy Director Ijima adjusts his glasses, flanked by the warrior Karen and the eye-patch-wearing Jinma. Ijima calmly states that he was the one who lured them into this dungeon, and he has no intention of letting them leave. His words are directed at a monstrous, snake-headed demon. Raising a pistol, Ijima declares that as the head of the dungeon administration, he will protect the creature with all his might. The demon snarls contemptuously at the group. Suddenly, before anyone can react, a torrent of shadowy tendrils erupts from an unseen source, violently ensnaring the snake demon and binding it completely. The attack's origin is revealed. The towering, horned form of demon Lord Fegnia looms over them all. The captured snake demon's eyes widen in shock as Karen and Jinma cry out in alarm at the new, overwhelming presence. From a swirling darkness, a demonic hand materializes, grasping a massive, gnarled weapon. Karen stares in horror, recognizing it as the demon's sword of the end of the world. As Jinma looks on, stunned, he wields the immense scythe with a manic grin. Fegnia addresses the bound demon as Rendias, goading him to unleash more power so they can properly punish the humans before them. His expression hardens into one of pure, murderous intent. Gripping the scythe tightly, he bellows a single, chilling word, kill. With a deafening roar, Fegnia unleashes his power. Reacting instantly, Jinma shouts for the others to get back as he throws up a hand, conjuring a shimmering magical shield to intercept the attack. The shield is no match for the demon's might. It shatters into countless pieces, the force of the impact sending Jinma flying backward as Ijima and Karen cry out his name in terror. He lands hard, blood spraying from a gash on his head. As Jinma grits his teeth in pain, Ijima spots an opening and takes aim with his pistol. At the same moment, Fegnia's scythe swings down, aimed directly at the defenseless Karen. As the scythe descended, Demon Lord Fegnia shifted his attention, clenching his fist around the swirling dark energy of the snake demon. He effortlessly compressed the entity into a small, volatile orb of light. Nearby, Deputy Director Ijima watched in disbelief, his plan unraveling. He stammered that this was impossible, certain that the snake demon's power should have been amplified by the back item he had been given. The contained power became unstable. With a guttural roar, Fegnia unleashed the energy, triggering a cataclysmic explosion that erupted from his position, shattering the very space around him. The shockwave obliterated the chamber in an instant, blasting rubble and debris in every direction as the blinding light of the detonation consumed everything.